Chapter 667. My name is indeed Zhou Xuanji. It's not worth mentioning. Zhou Xuanji nodded humbly, which made the 12 Dao ancestors look at each other in dismay. They did not expect this 12-star genius to be so low profile and not arrogant at all. And so, they began chatting. They were naturally curious about a 12-star genius, but they did not put on airs. As long as Zhou Xuanji did not die, he would surpass them sooner or later. Zhou Xuanji was willing to make friends with them. One more friend was better than one more enemy. Moreover, these people were not weak. These 12 Dao ancestors came from different divine ranges. It was either their second or third time choosing their vocations. In Kunlun Origin Court, other than the first vocation assessment that did not require merit points, the other two required merit points even if one was qualified. Of course, most living beings did not have enough talent and cultivation to choose a good vocation for the first time, so merit points were still needed. Not everyone was as talented as Zhou Xuanji. After a round of conversation, Zhou Xuanji got to know them. The most powerful one was a man named Yi Jun. He was in the top 10 of the breakthrough ranking not long ago. He came from the Tiangang divine range, which was very close to the top 1,000 divine ranges. It was considered the most powerful divine range here. Yi Jun looked very young and elegant. He was very friendly to Zhou Xuanji, as though he wanted to become sworn brothers with Zhou Xuanji. The calmest one was called Su Huang. He was dressed in black and looked like he was in his early 30s. He had a faint stubble on the side of his mouth and a stern face. He sized Zhou Xuanji up quietly with sharp eyes. The other Dao ancestors did not leave a deep impression on Zhou Xuanji. They were not familiar with each other either. Although your cultivation is not high, your aptitude is outstanding. Passing the test is almost a done deal. The one who spoke was the female Dao ancestor in a red dress in front of Zhou Xuanji. Her name was Nangang Jian. She smiled gently. Zhou Xuanji smiled softly and said, "Thank you for your kind words." The Void Boundary Deity Position Officer wore a black robe with purple threads and a hat. It was pitch black inside, and his face could not be seen. He looked like a ghost. There was an inner hall behind him. After registration, one could enter the inner hall. Soon, it was Zhou Xuanji's turn. He took out his identity token. 12-star talent. You are not bad. Go in. The Void Boundary Deity Position Officer stuck Zhou Xuanji's identity token on the golden mirror on his left hand and let him in. Zhou Xuanji put away his identity medallion and walked toward the gate of the inner palace. The creatures that came in later were secretly shocked. He was the 12-star genius, Zhou Xuanji. After entering the inner palace, Zhou Xuanji saw dozens of people waiting. The inner hall was brightly lit. Streaks of light and shadows flowed on the walls like movie projections, telling different stories about the emptiness boundary martial god. Zhou Xuanji attracted everyone's attention as soon as he came in. At this moment, the inner hall suddenly trembled violently. A strong light burst from the ground, and immediately after, they were teleported out. Zhou Xuanji saw the origin city shrinking rapidly. The Kunlun universe appeared before his eyes. Divine ranges that looked like pillars that supported the heavens came into view. They were rising rapidly. Nangang Jian walked to his side and said with a chuckle, "Don't be nervous. We're going to the Void Boundary Palace next. Maybe we can become a team in the future." Zhou Xuanji looked at her and asked curiously, "Team?" Nangang Jian nodded and said, "Just like the Void Boundary 13 Emperors, the Void Boundary War Gods also form teams of 13. At the same time, we can control 13 Void Boundary Great Emperors, and above us is the Void Boundary Heavenly Venerate." Zhou Xuanji was intrigued and asked, "What about Void Boundary God? You can't control it?" He still remembered the feeling when he looked up at the Void Boundary God in the cauldron. There is only one Emptiness Realm God in an Emptiness Realm. They don't belong to any divine range. They are basically full-time guards. When we arrive at their Emptiness Realm, we can order them, but we can't directly take them as our subordinates. Nangang Jian replied with a smile, enlightening Zhou Xuanji. He remembered Qing Jiao saying that there was more than one void realm outside the Kunlun Origin Court. With the Kunlun Origin Court as the center, different areas of the void were divided into different directions. From top to bottom, the void between all the universes was controlled by the void returning realm gods. They were like the security guards of the neighborhood, and the surrounding universe lords could ask them for help. The status of void boundary war gods was higher than that of void boundary gods, and they had more freedom. The surrounding Dao fathers all began to chat idly. Zhou Xuanji looked up and saw a majestic sea of fog at the end of the beam. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, and he could vaguely see the silhouette of a palace. Not long after, they entered the void boundary palace from the bottom. After landing, there were noises coming from all directions. Zhou Xuanji turned around and saw that there were more than 500 people. He clicked his tongue in amazement. So many Dao ancestors were competing for Void Boundary War God in just one day. How many Void Boundary War gods were there? How many Dao ancestors were there in the entire Kunlun Origin Court? At this moment, Zhou Xuanji's heart was in turmoil. He suddenly realized that he was still a frog in the well and underestimated the power of the Kunlun Origin Court. Silence. A majestic and domineering voice came, and everyone shut up in shock. Zhou Xuanji looked up and saw a black-robed figure who looked like a void boundary deity position official levitating in the air. Now, divide into teams. 13 to a team. If you fail to form a team, you will be eliminated immediately. The black-robed figure continued, and everyone began to move out in shock. Nangong Jiayin held Zhou Xuanji's arm and said with a smile, "Little brother, let's go together." Yi Jun, who was not far away, nodded at Zhou Xuanji. Su Huang walked over as well. The four of them gathered together, waiting for the other Dao ancestors to join. Some Dao ancestors that they knew in the queue also joined. Yi Jun did not reject them. Unknowingly, he became the leader. Time passed quickly. Soon, they formed a team of 13 people. Zhou Xuanji waited quietly. In the entire hall, his cultivation was the weakest. Other than them, there were some Dao-treading saints. According to Nangong Jiayin, those guys had a strong background and could buy a deity position with merit points. Wealth could move gods. It was suitable in many places. Finally, 11 creatures failed to form a team. They were expelled by the black-robed figure and sent back to their respective origin cities. Next, you will take the test one by one. After the test, you will form a new team. If anyone fails to form a team, it will still be considered as a failure, the black-robed figure said as he landed on the ground. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. This move was really vicious. The first time they formed a team, there might be friction, which would lead to the second time they formed a team. The first time they formed a team, there might be friction, which would lead to the second time they formed a team, and some creatures' leading positions would change. The first time they formed a team, there might be friction, which would lead to the second time they formed a team. No hurry. Let's wait for the test first, Yi Jun said to his team members with a smile. He looked very confident. Other than Zhou Xuanji, everyone in this team was a Dao ancestor. Moreover, he knew all of them and knew whether they had enough merit points. The other Dao ancestors who had not met Zhou Xuanji came up and chatted with him. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Chapter 668. One Dao father after another took the trial, and most passed. Zhou Xuanji's team was not the last to be assessed, and soon, it was his turn. The Void Boundary Deity Position Officer looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, 12-star talent, pass directly. You can become a Void Boundary War God. After that, the Void Boundary Deity Position official returned Zhou Xuanji's identity medallion to him, indicating that he could leave. Zhou Xuanji was a little stunned before he walked over. Wasn't this a little too easy? It seemed like the sign of a 12-star aptitude was really impressive. He was in a good mood and walked over to Yi Jun and Nangong Jiayin. In the end, no one failed the test. Zhou Xuanji witnessed the amount of merit points they were exchanging. It was an astronomical number, as if there were 9 zeros. Next, split up and stand in line. Keep a distance of at least 15 feet from each other and wait for the void boundary Empyrean to come and claim you. After saying this, the emptiness boundary deity position official disappeared into thin air. The atmosphere in the emptiness boundary palace became harmonious. From now on, they would all be emptiness boundary war immortals, and they would see each other frequently. Naturally, they had to build a good relationship with each other. Although Zhou Xuanji's cultivation was the lowest, the number of people who tried to hit on him was one of the highest. He smiled and nodded at these people's self-introductions. His attitude made the Tao ancestors very satisfied with him. This genius really knew how to conduct himself. Those Tao-treading saints were a little dissatisfied. They became void boundary war gods not because of their talent but because of merit points. So, most of them were pampered since childhood and were used to seeing geniuses. They were not interested in Zhou Xuanji. Time ticked by. Soon, a vast and boundless aura descended. Everyone looked up and saw a burly man burning with dark blue flames floating in the air. His arms were crossed in front of his chest, and he wore a mighty armor with a black silk scarf wrapped around his shoulder. He was expressionless and wore an iron helmet that looked like a tiger's head. He looked down at the team below and said, "I am Heavenly Sage Xin Yan. Zhou Xuanji's team, come out." Hearing this, everyone turned to look at Zhou Xuanji with envy in their eyes. Heavenly Sage Xin Yan's reputation was not small. His strength surpassed that of Tao ancestor. When Zhou Xuanji was in the Yu family, the servants had mentioned the legend of Heavenly Sage Xin Yan. He had lived for countless years and defeated countless experts. He was known as the Sun Ancestor God. Zhou Xuanji and the others immediately stepped forward. Yi Jun cupped his fists and said, "Sky Master, we will." Heavenly Sage Xin Yan naturally recognized Zhou Xuanji. His cultivation was really eye-catching in the Void Boundary Palace. "From now on, you are my subordinates," Heavenly Sage Xin Yan said in a deep voice, and with a wave of his right hand, he took Zhou Xuanji and the others away. As soon as they disappeared, the Void Boundary Palace instantly exploded. That's Empyrean Xin Yan, one of the most powerful Void Realm Heavenly Venerables. This is a 12-star aptitude. If it were me, I would also snatch it. Zhou Xuanji has soared to the sky. In the future, with the protection of Heavenly Sage Xin Yan, even the Longbow Divine Range will have to listen to him. We have to make friends with him in the future. That's right. Apart from those ancient existences, it's hard to find a 12-star genius every 10,000 years. Moreover, he's from another universe. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes again and found himself on a tall tower. In front of him was a boundless starry sky, and below him was a dense fog. Looking up, he could only see a boundless expanse. 12 people, including Yi Jun, Nangong Jiayin, and Su Huang, stood near him. At the edge of the railing, Heavenly Sage Xin Yan's back was facing them, making them afraid to speak. "From now on, you will be a team. You will live and die together. I hope you can be tolerant of each other because the missions you will face are also very serious. The stronger your teammates, the greater your chances of survival. Every mission, you will get the same merit points. For special situations, such as when the whole team is on the verge of extinction and one of you turns the tide, under the recommendation of the whole team, you will get the most merit points in the mission reward," Heavenly Sage Xin Yan said slowly. Heavenly Sage Xin Yan said slowly as he turned to look at Zhou Xuanji and the others. Zhou Xuanji's mind was filled with the captives and mission rewards of Void Boundary War God. Every year, he would get 10,000 merit points, not including the merit points from missions. And the mission rewards accounted for the majority of the Void Boundary War God's income. Some missions could give hundreds of millions of merit points, at least 100,000. This also showed that the position of Void Boundary War God was very dangerous. Next, Heavenly Sage Xin Yan asked Zhou Xuanji and the others to take out their identity cards. He then slapped their cards and returned them to them. "In the next year, I will choose missions for you. You have to be prepared when you go back. Your identity cards have been branded with the identity of Void Boundary War God. You can contact each other through the imprint of Void Boundary War God. Remember, don't use your power to bully the weak, understand? Heavenly Sage Shen Yan glanced at Zhou Xuanji and the others and said word by word. His eyes didn't stop on Zhou Xuanji. It seemed that Zhou Xuanji didn't attract his attention. Understood. Everyone responded in unison. Heavenly Sage Shen Yan nodded with satisfaction and said, "You will walk from the back later. This is the mission tower. You can learn about it. In addition to the first mission, you can also choose your own missions when you are free in the future. Remember, any mission must be based on the team." After saying this, Heavenly Sage Shen Yan disappeared. As soon as he disappeared, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Jun smiled and said, "From now on, everyone should be more tolerant of each other. Who knows when we might be saved by each other." As soon as he said this, everyone burst into laughter. Afterward, they walked toward the gate behind them while chatting. The mission tower was very big. It was very similar to the Dao Tower. The stairs spiraled down along the wall. It was about 10 feet wide. Various missions were reflected on the wall. One had to use their identity to accept the mission. As long as one person accepted the mission would also appear on the ID card of the entire team. Zhou Xuanji was very low-key. Although he had a 12-star aptitude, it was impossible for him to be the leader of the team. The gap between his cultivation and that of his teammates was too big. With Yi Jun and Nangong Jiayin taking care of him, he wasn't left out. Along the way, Zhou Xuanji saw all kinds of missions. These missions involved many strange mythical existences. Most of them were capture missions. They also indicated their strength. But this strength was not necessarily accurate. After a full 2 hours, they finally reached the first floor. Along the way, they encountered many teams. Many powerhouses were looking at Zhou Xuanji in astonishment. Because Overlord Saint cultivation was really rare. They came to the teleportation gate and returned to their respective cloud cities one by one. Zhou Xuanji, Yi Jun, Nangong Jiayin, and Su Huang came from the same origin city. So they could teleport together. In the teleportation array, Nangong Jiayin smiled and said, "Little brother, I can protect you when the time comes." Zhou Xuanji shook his head and replied with a smile, "Don't worry, I have the power to protect myself. I chose this god position because I want to become stronger." Yi Jun teased, "Fairy Nangong, you are so attentive to him. Could it be that you have feelings for him?" Chapter 669. In the face of Yi Jun's teasing, Nangong Jiayin raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "Little brother Xuanji is talented and handsome. So what if I have feelings for him?" When the other Dao ancestors heard this, they also laughed. Having cultivated to this point, they had seen all kinds of stunning beauties, so they weren't moved by Nangong Jiayin's beauty and didn't take her words seriously. This woman was only interested in Zhou Xuanji's talent. Zhou Xuanji maintained his smile and did not reply. He also didn't fancy Nangong Jiayin. He felt that it was enough to accept Xian Xianghua. Only God knew how old Nangong Jiayin was. Compared to her, Xian Xianghua was definitely not worth mentioning. In the Kunlun origin court, Xian Xianghua was like a young girl. Very quickly, they returned to the origin city. After walking out of the Void Boundary War God Temple, Qingjiu greeted him. Zhou Xuanji said goodbye to his teammates and left with Qingjiu. "Senior, congratulations on becoming an Emptiness Boundary War God. You are also the only Emptiness Boundary War God in our Longbow Divine range," Qingjiu said respectfully. There weren't many Dao ancestors in the Longbow Divine range, and the Void Boundary War God was very dangerous. Those Dao ancestors weren't willing to take the risk, not to mention that there were other occupations that were more suitable for them. Zhou Xuanji nodded lightly and smiled, "Let's go back to the Yu clan. I want to see my 3 subordinates." He planned to let Zhou Shaoxian, Zhang Shui, Xian Xianghua, and the others take root in the Kunlun origin court. He would have to trouble the Longbo Divine Range to help him register his identity. This matter shouldn't be too difficult. But before that, Jiang Shui and the others had to raise their cultivation to the Saint Realm. Even the worst had to be reaching Heaven level 10. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to be eliminated. Along the way, he told Qingjiu about what had happened. Qingjiu patted his chest and promised that it was only a small matter and that he would immediately report it to the Longbo ancestor after they returned. There were so many living beings in the Longbo Divine Range that it wouldn't be a problem to have a few hundred more people. Of course, the Longbo Divine Range wouldn't be able to handle all the creatures in the Lotus world. This would also attract the attention of the Origin Court. Longbo Divine Range, Yu Clan. Zhou Xuanji returned to the courtyard. Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao, and Si Mengyan sensed his aura and walked out of their rooms. They were very excited because they had heard of Zhou Xuanji's might in the Origin City. Zhou Xuanji was in a good mood. He sat in the pavilion with them and told them about what had happened during this period of time. Knowing that Zhou Xuanji had already surpassed the Void Boundary God and the Void Boundary 13 Emperors, the three were dumbfounded. They couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. This kid was flying too fast. After coming to the Kunlun Origin Court, he seemed to have changed into a completely different person. He rushed all the way with unstoppable momentum. Now, the results he had achieved were unimaginable. Zhou Xuanji's experience stimulated the three of them. They swore that they would work hard to cultivate. After they broke through to the Saint Realm, they would head to the Origin City to choose a profession and develop themselves. After chatting for 2 hours, Zhou Xuanji returned to his room. He had demon god Nanming take the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus and went to Skyfall to gather Zhou Shaoxian, Jiang Shui, Xian Xianghua, Lady Zhao Xian, Xiao Jinghong, and the others. Now, Earth and Skyfall had built a teleportation formation. This included the demon world, which made it easier for them to travel. Father, are there any wonderful adventures that you want to tell us about recently? Zhou Shaoxian asked excitedly. The others were also looking forward to it. The little black snake flicked his forked tongue and chuckled, "Don't tell me you met Xian Xianghua again?" Hearing this, Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua glared at him at the same time. Their murderous aura locked onto him, which scared him so much that he shivered and hid behind Chongming Demon Monarch. Zhou Xuanji began telling them about his experiences. From the aptitude test to the Great Elimination, to the Dao Tower breakthrough ranking, and finally to the Void Boundary War God test. Everyone's blood boiled as they listened. Awesome! Beixiao Wangjian clenched his fists and said excitedly. Chen Bantian, Lin Changge, Ning Zifeng, and the others could not help but feel their blood boiling. It had only been a short time, and Zhou Xuanji's status had already surpassed the Universe Lord Gods. The power and richness of the Kunlun Origin Court had opened the door to a new world for them. Revered teacher, are you bringing us to the Kunlun Origin Court? Xiao Jinghong asked, holding back his excitement. The others also looked at Zhou Xuanji expectantly. Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile and said, "Wait until you break through to the Saint Realm. Otherwise, you will not even be able to pass the lowest Great Elimination. In the future, I will improve the spiritual qi of the various worlds in the Lotus and strive to make the spiritual qi here reach the level of the Kunlun Origin Court." Everyone nodded, their eyes filled with desire. They also wanted to see what the Kunlun Origin Court was like with their own eyes. Following this, Zhou Xuanji gathered the entire Emperor Sword Court and planned to lead all of the court's disciples in cultivation. He continued to use his sword master haki to lead tens of millions of disciples in sword training while speaking about the Great Tao's voice. To Emperor Sword Court's disciples, this was a great opportunity. Now, Zhou Xuanji was an Overlord Saint level 8. His body was about to transform into a Great Tao body. 7 days later, he returned to the Kunlun Origin Court because someone had come looking for him. He put away demon god Nanming and the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus before walking out of the house. Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu stood in the courtyard. Little friend Xianji, the Void Boundary God of the nearby region, has brought the Void Boundary 13 Emperors to visit you. He said that he had a misunderstanding with you and wants to apologize. He is currently receiving you in the Qian Hall. You can go and meet him. With the support of our longbow divine range, if you want him to kneel, he must kneel. Yu Shinzhong smiled and explained his background. Zhou Xuanji heard him and raised his brow. Xiao Hu and the other two rushed out excitedly. They said they wanted to see it too. Zhou Xuanji had no objections. The group flew toward the Qian Hall. The Qian Hall was located in the upper level of the longbow divine range. It was a hall for receiving guests. Of course, one had to have a certain status to enter the Qian Hall. After a while, they quickly came to the Qian Hall. Zhou Xuanji followed Yu Shinzhong inside and immediately saw the void boundary god's burly figure. Behind him were 13 figures kneeling. They were the void boundary 13 emperors. Other than them, he also saw 5 other people. Buddha Yangling, barbarian god Huang Luo, old beggar, Su Qin, and Gu Tianxia. Barbarian god Huang Luo was very excited. He knelt down immediately and shouted, "Master." He looked like he was about to cry. He didn't look like a heavenly saint at all. Xiao Hu covered his face and cursed, "So embarrassing." The corner of Xing Tiandao's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Void Boundary God turned around and looked at Zhou Xuanji. The Void Boundary 13 emperors trembled and didn't dare to turn their heads. Sitting on the main seat was a tall middle-aged man. He was also one of the Longbow Divine Range's Dao ancestors. He was very powerful. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, he got up and said with a smile, "Little friend Xuanji, you are finally here. I am the Longbow Divine Range's law enforcement elder. You can call me Old Qian." Facing the hope of the Longbow Divine Range, even though Old Qian was a Dao ancestor, he had to welcome him with a smile. This scene made the old beggar, Buddha Yangling, and the others feel even more complicated. When they first met Old Qian gave them a sense of oppression without being angry. But when they saw Zhou Xuanji, it was as if he had become another person, which greatly shocked them. Chapter 670. Zhou Xuanji cupped his fist and bowed to Old Qian. Then, he walked to the front and turned to face the Void Boundary God and the Void Boundary 13 emperors. His eyes locked onto the Flame Emperor and Water Emperor. The 2 emperors quickly lowered their heads in fear, not daring to look him in the eye. Elder Qian smiled and stroked his beard, not saying a word. Yu Shinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu sized up the Void Boundary 13 emperors curiously. What kind of hatred did the Void Boundary God have to personally pay a visit? When Xiao Hu, Xing Tiandao, and Si Mengyan saw the kneeling Void Boundary 13 emperors, they felt indescribably carefree. It was the same for barbarian god Huang Luo and Buddha Yangling. Weren't you very arrogant and haughty before? You're only admitting your mistake now that you're kneeling? Gu Tianxia looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated expression. Now, he could not see through Zhou Xuanji at all. If he had known this would happen, he would have followed Zhou Xuanji instead of the old beggar. Among those present, the old beggar had the most complicated feelings. He was originally from the Kunlun origin court, so he knew what a 12-star aptitude represented. This kid, the old beggar smiled bitterly. It was not the first time that he had misjudged someone, but it was the first time that he had underestimated his own disciple. Zhou Xuanji looked up at Void Boundary God and asked, "How do you want to end this?" The Void Boundary God's expression was calm as he said, "I will return these people to you and pay 2 million merit points." How about it? 2 million merit points was a huge fortune for most living beings. Zhou Xuanji smiled with squinted eyes, "Sure, but I want to hear them apologize to me personally. It has to be sincere." Speaking of which, the Void Boundary 13 emperors had their reasons for doing this. They were also carrying out a mission and weren't really targeting him. However, he had almost died in the hands of the Void Boundary 13 emperors and the Void Boundary God. He couldn't just ignore it. Upon hearing this, the Void Boundary God glared at the Void Boundary 13 emperors and shouted, "What are you waiting for?" After saying this, he bowed to Zhou Xuanji with cupped fists and said, "Back then, we were short-sighted and offended you. Please forgive us, Senior. We are ignorant and have offended you. Senior, please forgive us. The Void Boundary 13 emperors shouted in unison. Apart from the Flame Emperor and the Water Emperor, the other great emperors were slightly upset. Before coming, they did not even know what Zhou Xuanji looked like. At this point, they could only bow their heads. Next, Void Boundary God took out his ID card and transferred 2 million merit points to Zhou Xuanji's ID card. This was the end of this grudge. Before he left, Zhou Xuanji instructed the Void Boundary God, "Help me investigate old ancestor Inshin. I will settle the score with him personally." Although it was a blessing in disguise, he still remembered that Patriarch Inshin was the one who fed him the poison. If Barbaric Ultimate God hadn't helped him get rid of the poison, he wouldn't have known about it. Yes. The Void Boundary God nodded respectfully and left with the Void Boundary 13 emperors. Elder Qian praised, "Not bad, you didn't shed all pretense of cordiality." When he was as young as Zhou Xuanji, he might have forced Zhou Xuanji to become his mortal enemy. However, it was impossible to kill a Void Boundary God. Unless it was in a place that no one knew. Zhou Xuanji gave a slight smile and exchanged some pleasantries with old Xian before taking the old beggar and the others away. "From now on, you will follow me. Do you have any objections?" Zhou Xuanji walked in front and asked. Barbarian God Huang Luo immediately smiled and said, "That's naturally for the best. This is our fortune." Buddha Yang Ling sighed and said nothing. The old beggar kept silent. He looked awkward and didn't know what to say. Zhou Xuanji asked Yu Xinzhong to register the five's ID cards before sending them to his residence in the Yu family. Yu Xinzhong didn't refuse. He only felt that it was a trivial matter. On the same day, Zhou Xuanji went to the origin city alone to continue cultivating. Just as he flew out of the Longbo Divine Range, Qing Jiu caught up with him. Zhou Xuanji didn't refuse and let him follow. After arriving at the previous Dao Tower, Zhou Xuanji entered a 4-star Dao room and began cultivating. As usual, he took out the 4 demon god bodies and the 24-rank deep black lotus to let them absorb the spiritual qi here. He began absorbing the great Dao and cultivating the greatly divine suppressor technique. Time passed day by day. 2 months later, analyzed that the sword owner has reached 514 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations, the sword owner obtained Primordial Chaos, Inverted Book Sword, Glorious Gold, White God Sea-Piercing Sword. The sword spirit's voice pulled Zhou Xuanji's thoughts back to reality. Finally, he got another Primordial Chaos Legendary Sword. He had yet to use the Primal Chaos Primal Beginning Sword. That sword required the cultivation of a 7th-level Overlord Saint, which he had already reached. He did not know what was so special about this primordial divine sword. Very soon, Inverted Book's information appeared before his eyes. Sword name, Inverted Book Sword level, primeval description, the blade of the sword is like a book. It can reverse karma and sever the fate between living beings. It will be most effective if the other party doesn't notice it. You need to be at least a 9th-level Overlord Sage to use this sword. Reverse karma and cut off fate? Zhou Xuanji's eyes brightened. He felt that this sword was quite good. However, he was still one sky away from being able to use this sword. He couldn't help but think of a higher-grade divine sword. Ordinary ore, iron, bronze, silver, gold, amethyst, glorious gold, heavenly soul, intimidating spirit, celestial shaking, God slaying, Armageddon. Ancient gazing, disaster releasing, universe essence, overturning heavens, heaven span, 9 extremities, primordial chaos. Profound way, honored lord, vast sky, merging all life, court overturning. When are you going to play with this profound path divine sword? Could a supreme lord divine sword injure a Dao-treading venerable? Zhou Xuanji thought for a while before calming himself down and continuing to cultivate. At the same time, the spiritual qi in the lotus world was still growing. The violent spiritual qi in the Dao room seemed inexhaustible. No matter how much he absorbed, he didn't need to worry about alarming the Dao tower. Time flew. After half a year, Zhou Xuanji finally broke through to 9th level Overlord Sage. The cultivation of his 4 demon god bodies had reached 6th level Overlord Sage. Feeling refreshed, he packed up his things and walked out of the 4-star Dao room. As soon as he came to the 1st floor, he saw a familiar figure. Nangong Jiayin. Why is this woman here? Sensing his aura, Nangong Jiayin turned around and waved at him. Zhou Xuanji walked over and greeted, "Fairy Nangong, long time no see." Nangong Jiayin covered her mouth and smiled, "Little brother, I am here to look for you. Our first void boundary mission is coming soon. Are you ready?" "Ready?" Zhou Xuanji replied, "I don't even know the specific mission. How can I prepare?" Nangong Jiayin grabbed his arm and pulled him out. Zhou Xuanji slightly furrowed his brow and broke free from her hand without leaving a trace. The two walked under a big tree on the street. Nangong Jiayin flipped her right hand, and a jade slip appeared in her palm. She said, "This is our mission. I have special channels to get the information in advance. After the Void Boundary Heavenly Sovereign selects the mission for us, he will register it first. But the specific execution time is up to him." Zhou Xuanji looked at her in surprise. This woman has already reached the Void Boundary Heavenly Sovereign level. He took the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense. The next moment, the jade pendant turned into countless light stars and drilled into his mind, turning into memories. Chapter 671. The first mission that Heavenly Sage Xin Yan chose for Zhou Xuanji and the others was an exploration mission. That new cosmos was a stretch of chaos. There were only a few newborn chaos fiend gods. They were muddle-headed and didn't have any world laws. Besides searching, they also had to find the Great Dao Source Stone. As long as he controlled the Great Dao Source Stone, he could control that universe. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and asked curiously, "This mission doesn't look too difficult. Why did you come to find me in advance?" Nangong Jiayin smiled mysteriously. "Do you want to obtain the Great Dao Source Stone?" Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, "If we don't hand over the Great Dao Source Stone, we won't be able to complete the mission." What was this woman trying to do? His first reaction was that Nangong Jiayin wanted to drag him down with her. "Don't worry, I have a treasure that can duplicate the Great Dao Source Stone. When the time comes, I will hold them back, and you will be in charge of duplicating the Great Dao Source Stone. If I come, they will be suspicious." Nangong Jiayin smiled, making Zhou Xuanji curious. What kind of treasure could duplicate things? He asked, "Why did you choose me and not others?" If Nangong Jiayin didn't convince him, he wouldn't agree. In this world, there is no love without reason. It's very simple. Your cultivation is the weakest, and it's not just a star or two lower than ours. When the time comes, everyone will hand over the Great Dao Source Stone to you because it's useless to you. Nangong Jiayin raised her hand and brushed past Zhou Xuanji's ear. She then placed her hand on the tree trunk like a man intercepting a young girl. Zhou Xuanji was speechless and said, "Just talk, don't do anything." Nangong Jiayin smiled, then withdrew her hand and said, "So it's settled then?" She took out a golden basket. It was the size of an ordinary basket and looked simple and unadorned. "This is the jade gold treasure basket. I'll give it to you in advance. Don't take it out unless you need to use it," Nangong Jiayin said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji took the jade gold treasure basket and began to appreciate it. He asked, "What's my reward?" Nangong Jiayin smiled and said, "Of course it's the Great Dao Source Stone. I'll give you half of it. When you break through to the Dao Treading Saint realm, this half of the Great Dao Source Stone will be a precious treasure." With the golden treasure basket in his hand, Zhou Xuanji could not help but be moved. In the end, he agreed to this matter and placed the golden treasure basket into the supreme storage. The two chatted for a while before Nangong Jiayin left. Zhou Xuanji did not return but waited where he was. Qingjiu quickly rushed over and respectfully said, "Senior, do you have any instructions?" He pretended that he did not see what had just happened. He did not dare to care who Zhou Xuanji interacted with. Even if the Longbo Divine Range wanted to protect Zhou Xuanji, they could not interfere with Zhou Xuanji's social circle. Is there a place to search for information in the origin city? Zhou Xuanji asked. He wanted to find out more about the Great Tao Source Stone and the Golden Treasure Basket. Qing Jiao nodded and immediately led him there. Half a month later, Zhou Xuanji returned to the Yu clan residence. He had already learned about the Golden Treasure Basket and the Great Tao Source Stone. The Golden Treasure Basket was a legendary treasure that could replicate anything. There was only one Golden Treasure Basket in the entire Kunlun Origin Court. The Great Tao Source Stone was helpful to Tao trading supremacies and Tao ancestors in their cultivation. This was also the reason why many universes were invaded and plundered. However, most of the Great Tao origin stones were controlled, and one had to spend large amounts of merit points to purchase them. No wonder Nangong Jiayin had such thoughts. Returning to the courtyard, he saw the old beggar and Su Qing meditating under a tree. Su Qing's delirious illness was nothing in the Kunlun origin court. Yu Xinzhong had already helped him collect medicinal herbs. So recently, the old beggar had been smiling all over his face. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, he immediately came over and asked with a big smile, "Xuanji, where have you been cultivating recently?" Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and said, "Origin City Dao Pagoda, don't ask me for merit points. I will not give them to your precious disciple." The old beggar stared at him and said, "Will the master be so biased towards my disciple?" Zhou Xuanji shrugged with a smile and did not say much. He was about to walk into his house but was stopped by the old beggar. "You are now a void boundary war god. In the future, you can go back and conquer that heavenly law universe and destroy that destiny. You don't want the universe you were born in to collapse, right?" The old beggar said seriously. Zhou Xuanji thought for a moment before nodding. However, this matter had to wait until he completed his first Void Boundary War God mission. The master and disciple chatted for a while before walking away. Time was ruthless. They could no longer be as close to each other as before. Zhou Xuanji didn't hold a grudge. After all, the old beggar had taught him before. Taking in the old beggar and his disciple was already his greatest repayment. He also had his own path to walk. In the next 3 months, Zhou Xuanji was busy teaching the disciples of Emperor Sword Court to cultivate. Only the Void Boundary War God imprint in his ID card emitted a divine will fluctuation. The mission was about to begin. He immediately headed to the Vocation Palace. The Vocation Palace of each origin city could be used as a teleportation point. When he arrived at the Vocation Palace, Nangong Jiayin, Yi Jun, and Su Huang were waiting for him. "Brother Xuanji, you are finally here." "Let's go," Yi Jun said with a smile. Then, they came to the Void Boundary Palace through the teleportation array and met up with the other teammates. Under Yi Jun's lead, they quickly came to the floor where Heavenly Sage Shen Yan was. Heavenly Sage Shen Yan stood in front of the railing beside the tower, waiting quietly. Seeing the arrival of Zhou Xuanji and the others, he said, "The first task is to get the Great Tao Source Stone. The Chaos Demon gods in this new universe are not simple. You have to be careful." Yi Jun nodded and said, "Heavenly Sage, rest assured, we will definitely complete the mission." The other team members nodded in agreement. Heavenly Sage Shen Yan waved his right hand, and a black hole glowing with purple light appeared beside him, motioning Zhou Xuanji and the others to step into it. Yi Jun took the lead and walked in, followed by the others. Just as Zhou Xuanji was about to step into the black hole, Heavenly Sage Shen Yan's voice rang in his ears. "If you can become a Tao-treading saint by the time you return from this mission, I will give you a big opportunity. Don't let me down. When necessary, you can swallow the Great Tao Source Stone." Zhou Xuanji was stunned. Just as he was about to stop, Nangong Jiayin, who was behind him, pushed him forward. Walking through the space-time tunnel, Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. What does Heavenly Sage Shen Yan mean? Can I swallow the Great Tao Source Stone? Is it a test for me? Or is it a hidden mission? Should we give this team a name? Yi Jun's voice came from the front, drawing the approval of the others. They began to discuss what name to give it. Zhou Xuanji was still thinking about Heavenly Sage Shen Yan's words. No. It's definitely a trick. Heavenly Sage Shen Yan said that everything should be based on the team. Now, he said that he should try his best to break through to the Tao-treading Saint realm. If he couldn't reach it, he could swallow the great Tao Source Stone. Isn't he just testing me to choose between the team and myself? After thinking it through, Zhou Xuanji felt relaxed and stopped thinking about it. Chapter 672. Finally, after some discussion, Yi Jun and the others named their team Xian Mao. The word Xian was related to most of the members. Some had the word Xian in their names, while others had the word Xian in their energy techniques or divine abilities. Mao, on the other hand, was planning for their future. The path of cultivation was long and boring. It was not easy to form a team like this. Moreover, everyone's power was about the same. Even the weakest Zhou Xuanji had 12-star talent. Such a relationship was beneficial to them. Zhou Xuanji was not too fond of the name Xian Mao. Since everyone was in high spirits, he would not dampen their enthusiasm. Looking at them chatting and laughing, Zhou Xuanji sighed in amazement. Tao ancestors were humans too. They had their own temperaments. Perhaps in front of other living beings, they were aloof, indifferent, and just, but in front of those of the same level and benefits, they would reveal their true nature. Along the way, Nangong Jian was not too enthusiastic with Zhou Xuanji. Just like before, she teased him occasionally. After flying for an hour, we're arriving at the mission universe. Yi Jun looked ahead and said. His Tao energy enveloped everyone instantly. Zhou Xuanji was in the middle. With the protection of the 12 Tao ancestors, he was not worried at all. Soon, they flew out of the space-time tunnel and came to a dark, turbid universe. The entire universe was filled with chaos chi. There were no stars or meteorites. Zhou Xuanji looked around curiously at this newborn universe. Su Huang said, split up. Gather intelligence first. No matter how powerful the chaos demon gods in this new universe are, they are only Tao-treading saints. Other than Zhou Xuanji, we can deal with them alone. Yi Jun nodded and said, Zhou Xuanji, follow me. I will protect him. The others had no objections. Nangong Jian curled her lip and said, you really know how to build relationships. Yi Jun laughed but did not reply. And so, Xian Mao split up. Zhou Xuanji left with Yi Jun. Along the way, Yi Jun chatted with Zhou Xuanji. The atmosphere was harmonious and not awkward at all. This newborn universe is not simple. A group of Tao ancestors came to check it out. It should be a high-level universe. Those chaos demon gods might be quite talented. Yi Jun said with a meaningful smile. Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. His 9-soul fusion technique still lacked 5 duplicates. Perhaps he could find these chaos demon gods. After all, his demon god body was not as high-grade as the chaos demon god's bloodline. Yi Jun was very fast. Before long, they saw a chaos demon god. That guy was curled up in a giant transparent egg. His body was ferocious and terrifying, but his face was very peaceful. This chaos fiend god was enormous. Even when it was squatting, it was still millions of feet tall. Zhou Xuanji stared at it and thought with squinted eyes. Yi Jun noticed his gaze and asked with a smile, what? Want to subdue it? It's simple, but it's not the strongest chaos demon god. I'll bring it to the strongest one. In the Kunlun origin court, slaves were very common. Especially the chaos demon gods of the newborn universe, they were like pets to them. Zhou Xuanji shook his head. He did not like living spirits. He didn't like to force the innocent, not to mention that the 9-soul fusion technique would kill the chaos demon god. Next, Zhou Xuanji saw all kinds of chaos demon gods. Some were beautiful, some were ugly, and there were all kinds of oddities. 2 days later, Xian Mao reunited, and each of them exchanged information. They only saw the Chaos Demon God, not the Great Tao Source Stone. Su Huang said, the Great Tao Source Stone should be hidden in the Great Tao space, or it might have transformed into a chaotic demon god. The others nodded. It seems like this mission is not that dangerous, a Tao ancestor said with a smile. A Tao ancestor laughed, and the others laughed as well. The atmosphere was very relaxed. Nangong Jane covered her mouth and said with a smile, don't let your guard down. There might be some powerful beings hiding in the dark. Although she said so, her tone was obviously not serious. The atmosphere became more relaxed. They chatted among themselves, and the topic gradually deviated from the mission. Zhou Xuanji's purple pupils contracted suddenly. He looked in all directions, but no one knew what he was looking at. At that moment, he suddenly felt that someone was spying on him. What's wrong? Yi Jun asked him, and the others looked over too. Zhou Xuanji said with squinted eyes, something is watching us. Two beams of light shot out from his purple eyes, which looked extremely evil. That's, Su Huang opened his eyes wide. His heart was in great shock. Yi Jun and the others looked around vigilantly. All the chaos demon gods were still being nurtured. Who would be spying on them? Could it be the one who took the Great Tao Source Stone? Thinking that the Great Tao Source Stone might have been taken by someone else, their hearts sank immediately. A Tao ancestor took out a white jade bottle and sprinkled it toward the chaos. Countless drops of clear water flew out and froze the entire universe instantly. At a glance, there were ice crystals everywhere. Everyone's eyes locked onto a silhouette immediately. It was a man wearing a purple robe and a purple fox mask. His white hair danced in the wind, and the half of his face that was revealed looked extremely hideous. Especially his eyes, which were filled with viciousness and hatred. What's that? It's not a chaos demon god. Someone has already set his eyes on this newborn universe. Everyone, be careful. This guy is also a Tao ancestor. Why does his mask look so familiar? Xian Mao's members discussed among themselves. All of them took out their enchanted artifacts and prepared for battle. Su Huang was the first to attack. He came before the purple-robed man in an instant and slammed his palm. The purple-robed man moved swiftly as well. Boom! The two palms clashed, and the purple-robed man was blasted away, shattering pieces of ice crystals. Before Su Huang could attack again, the purple-robed man disappeared. A word of advice. It's best to give up on this mission, or else you will surely die. The cold voice chilled the entire chaotic universe. A gust of ghastly wind blew with a dense murderous aura. Yi Jun's expression changed drastically and mumbled, could it be Daohu Chiozuan? If it's them. No wonder. I was wondering how this mission could be so simple. The other Tao ancestors all went to capture the purple-robed man. Zhou Xuanji asked in confusion, who is Daohu Chiozuan? Yi Jun took a deep breath and said, it's a faction. Their leader was one of the 5 ultimate gods back then. Their faction is widely spread and plunder the power of the universe. Even the Kunlun Origin Court has many of their people. One of the 5 ultimate gods. Zhou Xuanji immediately thought of barbaric ultimate god. Were his companions that powerful? Daohu Chiozuan is very cruel. They will do everything they can to get whatever they set their eyes on. They even dare to kill void boundary heavenly lords. In the Kunlun Origin Court, they are feared by everyone. This guy is not too powerful, but I'm afraid that they have someone even more powerful. Remember, those who wear the purple fox mask are usually from Daohu Chiozuan. Yi Jun sighed and felt frustrated immediately. Chapter 673. Xian Mao's Tao ancestors and the purple-robed man were fighting in the chaotic universe. They moved incredibly quickly, so quickly that Zhou Xuanji's eyes could not follow them. Yi Jun, what should we do now? If it's really Daohu Chiozuan, we might be in big trouble if we delay any longer. Nangong Jian asked with a frown. If Daohu Chiozuan interfered, how could she obtain the Great Tao Source Stone? In addition, if they failed the mission, they would lose their qualifications as void boundary war gods. The first mission of an emptiness boundary martial god was also a test. If he failed at the very beginning, how could the void boundary palace trust him? Yi Jun looked around and said, "The great Tao source stone should still be here. Otherwise, he would have left long ago. Everyone, don't act alone, or you'll fall into an ambush. Let's search for the great Tao source stone together. It should be hidden within one of the chaos demon gods." The remaining Tao fathers all nodded. There were 4 Tao fathers left to deal with the violet-robed man. That was more than enough. They had to find the great Tao source stone as soon as possible. Zhou Xuanji followed them closely and watched them kill the chaos demon gods one after another. Some of the chaos demon gods let out miserable howls, and some were killed before they could even open their eyes. This was a massacre. Zhou Xuanji frowned. Although he did not like such behavior, he could not stop it. Firstly, he was not strong enough. Secondly, he had no standpoint. He was not related to these chaos demon gods, so how could he speak? Soon, Xian Mao had killed more than 200 chaos demon gods, but he still hadn't found the great Tao source stone. Yi Jun and the others continued their search. Their speed was getting faster and faster. Zhou Xuanji almost couldn't keep up. Fortunately, Nangong Jiayin supported him and flew with him. After a while, Su Huang and the 3 Tao ancestors flew to their side, cursing angrily. He escaped. His divine ability is really strange. It can actually split. He can still think independently after splitting. Could it be an illusion? Everyone, be careful. Hearing their words, everyone felt as if a huge rock had been placed on their hearts. Yi Jun said solemnly, "Everyone, do not split up. Spread out your divine senses and be on guard at all times." Everyone nodded, but they did not panic. With 12 Tao ancestors joining forces, what was there to fear? Moreover, this was just a new universe, so Dao Hu Chiozuan couldn't possibly invade on a large scale. "Your eyes are the exterminating divine eyes?" Su Huang suddenly asked Zhou Xuanji telepathically. Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and nodded lightly. Su Huang continued, "Do not use this pair of eyes in front of Dao Hu Chiozuan. Their leader is one of the 5 ultimate gods, and the exterminating divine eyes is one of the 5 ultimate divine eyes. If you are discovered, they will not support you, but offer you to their leader. That guy has always wanted to fuse the 5 ultimate divine eyes." At this point, he said no more. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. This meant that Dao Hu Chiozuan was his hidden enemy. No wonder he had never heard barbaric ultimate god mention the other 5 ultimate gods. At this time, Yi Jun killed another chaos fiend celestial and found a transparent crystal the size of a head in its body. "Found it. Great Tao source stone," Yi Jun said excitedly, eliciting cheers from the other members. He turned to look at Zhou Xuanji and said, "This chaos demon god should be the most powerful being in this chaotic universe. I purposely left its body intact. You can have it." Zhou Xuanji hesitated for a moment before he waved his right hand and stored the chaos demon god. This chaos demon god had 3 heads and 6 arms. He had a green face and a head full of red hair. Even though he was dead, he was still horrifying. His aura had reached the cultivation of a Tao-treading saint. To Zhou Xuanji, this was a great serendipity. "Thank you," he said to Yi Jun. Yi Jun waved his hand and smiled generously. "It's no big deal. In the future, we, Xuanmo, must support each other to achieve a win-win situation." The others nodded with a smile. They were not envious. A chaos demon god at the Tao-treading saint level was not enough to make them envious. The way back must be very dangerous. "Let's put the great Tao source stone on someone Dao Hu Chiozuan won't expect," Nangong Jiayin said with a frown. Nangong Jiayin frowned and muttered, a thoughtful look on her face. The other Tao ancestors nodded. Yi Jun was the most powerful, so he must be the biggest target. Yi Jun looked at everyone and finally locked his eyes on Zhou Xuanji. I will give you the great Tao Source Stone, but you cannot take it out. You can only take it out when we return to the Void Boundary Palace. Can you do that? All eyes fell on Zhou Xuanji. Some frowned, while others looked at him with approval. Zhou Xuanji was the weakest. Who would have thought that they would place the great Tao Source Stone on the weakest person? In response, Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and said, I'm afraid. Yi Jun waved his hand and threw the great Tao Source Stone to him. It's yours. Hurry up and keep it. Nangong Jiayin had a serious look on her face, but in her heart, she was laughing and sighing. This kid's acting was very realistic. Zhou Xuanji immediately stored the great Tao Source Stone into the supreme storage. He was expressionless and did not say anything. Xian Mao's group continued to rush towards a certain direction. When they came, there was a teleportation array, but if they wanted to go back, they could only rely on their Tao energy to travel through the space-time tunnel. He might be ambushed by Daohu Chiozuan along the way. Of course, there was also the possibility of other enemies. After a while, Yi Jun suddenly stopped. The other Tao ancestors were moved as well. What happened? The great Tao wall has been sealed. Not good. Daohu Chiozuan is indeed plotting something. What should we do now? Everyone be careful. Zhou Xuanji frowned at everyone's cries of surprise. After coming to the new universe, he did not even have the time to cultivate and had been running around. Could it be that they were going to stop here? A Tao ancestor suddenly took out a golden door and said, This door is connected to the space-time turbulence. Everyone, escape first. We will meet in the Kunlun Origin Court. The group could only nod. Before Zhou Xuanji could react, Su Huang pushed him into the door and followed closely behind. The others followed suit. Soon, the golden door disappeared into thin air. Not long after they left, the purple-robed man appeared. Could those eyes be the 5 ultimate divine eyes? He mumbled with a frown. His eyes rolled before turning into a puff of purple smoke and dissipating in the air. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji came to the space-time turbulence. He was surrounded by electric currents of various colors, but most of them were silver. There was no sky, land, or other living beings. He extended his divine sense but could not sense the aura of Xian Mao's members. He waited for a while. After making sure that there was no one, he immediately took out the golden treasure basket and the great Tao Source Stone. He placed the great Tao Source Stone into the golden treasure basket. A moment later, another great Tao Source Stone appeared out of nowhere. He immediately took one and wanted to see if he could replicate it again. It was a pity that everything could only be replicated once in the golden treasure basket. He did not regret it. After packing up, he turned around and left. It was his first time coming to such a space-time turbulence. Every time his body came into contact with electric currents, he would feel a sharp pain. He estimated that if his cultivation was lower than connecting heaven, he would have turned into ashes instantly. Chapter 674. Zhou Xuanji walked aimlessly in the space-time turbulence. As he moved forward, the space-time currents he encountered grew more powerful. If this continued, he would surely be annihilated. He stopped and began to think of a way to escape. He suddenly thought of Sovereign Xian and Tao Lord Shantian. He immediately activated the Tianxia map and asked them about the space-time turbulence. How did you come to the space-time turbulence? Overlord Saint Level 9. Brat, you're incredible. The two souls exclaimed in amazement. Zhou Xuanji noticed Tao Lord Xuantian's words. How did he know that he was at Overlord Saint Level 9? Thinking about it, he still did not know where Tao Lord Shantian came from. Sovereign Xian also sensed that something was amiss and asked Tao Lord Shantian how he knew Zhou Xuanji's cultivation. There's nothing I don't know. It's not difficult to leave the space-time turbulence. You just have to dive into it. But it will be very painful. Just bear with it, Tao Lord Shantian replied. Tao Master Shantian replied with a smug tone. Back when the 9 souls were together, he had no sense of existence. No matter how much he boasted, no one believed him. Now that there were only 2 souls left, Zhou Xuanji did not want to talk to them. This made him very angry. After holding it in for so long, he could finally show off in front of Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji did not doubt him and charged into the space-time turbulence beside him. The destructive space-time currents enveloped him and made him suffer indescribable pain. But he did not frown and continued to charge in calmly. He was already more than 500 years old and had endured much pain. How could he be afraid of such pain? After passing through layers of space-time turbulence, he felt that he had broken through something. Next, a powerful light flashed before his eyes, and he came to a resplendent starry sky. He heaved a long sigh. His clothes were shredded, and his body was covered with wounds and blood. He took out the Holy Light Redemption Sword to heal himself. After his wounds scabbed, he cast a spell to create water to heal his body. After a simple cleaning, he took out a white shirt and put it on. He scanned his surroundings with his divine sense to see if there were any signs of living beings in this universe. The spiritual qi here was abundant, similar to Wanshan Great Thousand. The most powerful being was only at ordinary saint level 3. He smiled faintly and flew to a nearby meteorite to cultivate. He took out the bodies of the 4 demon gods and let them cultivate on their own while he faced the corpse of the chaos demon god. This guy had the cultivation of a Tao-treading saint, and Yi Futian wondered if he could refine him into a clone. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, a ferocious green face, and a head full of red hair. Even after death, its aura still remained, making people tremble with fear. He began to cast the soul division art, splitting a wisp of his soul into the chaos fiend god's body. Boom! Zhou Xuanji suddenly felt an explosion in his mind, and a wave of memories forcefully flooded into his mind. This chaos fiend god's name was Pan Zhen, and he was the most powerful chaos fiend god in the entire chaos verse. He possessed the quintessence of the grand Tao of power, and he was born with the mission to surpass all other chaos fiend gods. That mission was to split heaven and earth and manifest the Tao of the heavens. Unfortunately, Pan Zhen wasn't even born with intelligence before he was killed. After Zhou Xuanji absorbed this memory, his expression was a little strange. He couldn't help but think of the ancient myth of Wuxia, Pangu opening the heavens. They both had the surname Pan, and they both had the mission to split the heavens and earth apart. They were definitely related. Could Pangu really exist? Zhou Xuanji was in deep thought. He even saw the 3-legged golden crow, which meant that the Chinese myth had some basis. No matter what, Pan Zhen was very talented. The Great Tao of Power, as the name suggested, represented the Great Tao of Power. If he was nurtured well, he might become a lethal weapon for Zhou Xuanji. After that, Zhou Xuanji activated the 9-soul fusion technique and merged Pan Zhen with himself. Boom! The meteorite beneath him was crushed instantly. The violent power scared Zhou Xuanji so much that he immediately deactivated the divine ability. Countless bloody wounds appeared on his body. At that moment, he felt that his body was about to explode. A Tao-treading saint's power was too powerful for him to bear. TSK. The Great Tao of Power. Brat, your luck is too powerful. Tao Lord Xiantian praised, every chaos verse will have a chaos fiend god created by the Great Tao of Power. The word Pan represents the origin of the Great Tao of Power. As more and more demon gods of the Great Tao of Power rise, they formed the Pan clan. Don't take this guy out when you meet them in the future. Pan clan. Zhou Xuanji's eyes sparkled as he memorized this name. What is your identity? He asked curiously. Tao Lord Xiantian laughed and said, I'm just a wanderer in the various worlds. It's not worth mentioning. Damn. So pretentious. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes and did not bother to ask further. He brought his 5 clones to another gigantic meteorite and sat down cross-legged. He took out the golden treasure basket and placed it in front of him. The thunderclap sword fell into the basket and shrunk quickly, just enough to fit inside. Next, another thunderclap sword appeared out of nowhere. He picked up the two thunderclap swords and sensed the power within them. They were exactly the same. I'm rich. Zhou Xuanji smiled. When he first obtained the golden treasure basket, he already had this idea. But it was not convenient for him to use it in the Yu clan, or else the aura of the golden treasure basket would alert those powerhouses. He began duplicating his legendary swords. He could even duplicate 2 primordial chaos legendary swords. Until now, he had a total of 1,356 legendary swords. Now, he had 2,712. This feels so good. The legendary swords were already powerful enough. If he used the sword fusion technique, Zhou Xuanji grinned from ear to ear. It was the first time he smiled like this since he comprehended Dao will. Golden treasure basket, you got such a treasure. Kid, using this treasure will consume your luck, Dao Lord Xiantian sighed. Dao Lord Xiantian sighed with a strange tone. How could this kid be fine after consuming his luck so wantonly? Zhou Xuanji asked, it didn't recognize me as its master. Whose luck is it consuming? Dao Lord Xiantian replied, naturally, it's the luck of its master. Because of this, many creatures fear it. If you accidentally lose it, won't you be played to death? Zhou Xuanji fell silent. He suddenly felt sorry for Nangong Jian. This woman was so careless. Did she think that he was honest, or did she think that he didn't know how to use the golden treasure basket? He couldn't figure it out and was too lazy to think about it. He no longer used the golden treasure basket and stored it in the supreme storage. After all, Nangong Jian treated him very well. If he used up all her luck, it would be a great sin. Sigh. If this treasure was his and he had unlimited luck, how great would that be? Zhou Xuanji said to himself proudly, if so, in the future, I will have countless legendary swords. His greed made Dao Lord Xiantian ridicule him. Luck is not so easy to obtain. But you are talented. Maybe one day, you will exceed my imagination. Chapter 675. What's the specific way to obtain luck? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. Before, he did not take fate seriously, but the golden treasure basket's miraculous effect piqued his interest. Dao Lord Xiantian said, it's very complicated. Sometimes, you can obtain karmic luck by killing an enemy. Sometimes, you can obtain karmic luck by stealing someone's fortune. Sometimes, you can obtain karmic luck by occupying someone's position. The 10,000 worlds all have different methods of obtaining karmic luck. One thing is for sure, the higher your cultivation, the greater your karmic luck. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes. What he said was as good as not saying anything. Venerable Xian hesitated for a long time before asking, can I reincarnate into the Kunlun origin court? He was lonely in the heavenly law universe, which was why he challenged the heavenly law and perished. Now that he was in a wider world, he naturally wanted to make another breakthrough. To be honest, Zhou Xuanji did not understand. With his ability, what right did he have to challenge the heavenly Tao? Why didn't he challenge the heavenly saints? He had asked Xian Zun before, but Xian Zun refused to answer. Forget it. Foreign souls can't enter the Kunlun origin court. Since I let you out, you won't be able to reincarnate. Instead, you will be captured, tortured, and then killed. Dao's sovereign Xiantian said disdainfully, instantly extinguishing the fire in Xian Zun's heart. Zhou Xuanji said meaningfully, looks like you know a lot about the Kunlun origin court. Could it be that you are also from the Kunlun origin court? Dao Master Xiantian sighed, at that time, I saw a beam of light descending from the peak of the origin court and directly annihilated my physical body, leaving only a remnant of my soul. Now that you have obtained that beam of light, it has become your opportunity. You have to make good use of it. Besides us, there are many powerful souls that were swept away. I don't know if they still exist, if, Zhou Xuanji frowned, there were other powerful souls? For Dao Master Xiantian to call him powerful, he was definitely not simple. He chatted with the two souls for half an hour before he began to cultivate. Since he couldn't find Xian Mao, and the great Tao Source Stone was with him, he wasn't in a hurry to return. He would cultivate for a while first. It would be best if he could break through to the Tao Treading Saint realm in one go. Soon, he noticed that something was wrong. It was unknown if it was because he had refined Pan Jin into a clone, but he had a deeper understanding of the great Tao, and the speed at which he absorbed Tao energy was also increasing. Good news. He began to cultivate wholeheartedly. The 5 doppelgangers stood guard around him. If there was an enemy attack, they would instinctively attack. 20 hours later. Zhou Xuanji suddenly felt a divine will fluctuation from the ID mark on his right arm. He immediately took out the ID card. Nangong Jian's voice came, "Little brother, did you use my golden treasure basket?" Her voice was still gentle, but Zhou Xuanji sensed a trace of danger in it. He replied, "That's right. I have already duplicated the great Tao Source Stone. I will give it to you when we return." Nangong Jian asked with a smile, "Have you used anything else besides this?" He pretended to be stunned and said, "I can use it." He could tell that Nangong Jian had already noticed the reduction of her luck, but for her, it hadn't hurt her foundation. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had such an attitude. He could only sigh in his heart. It was a sin that he did not know before. I must make it up to her in the future. It's okay. You better not use it, or you'll hurt my sister. Nangong Jian replied with a smile, and the dangerous aura disappeared. She continued, "Where are you?" Zhou Xuanji calmly replied, "Let's meet in the Kunlun Origin Court." "I don't know where I am either. It's only safe in the Kunlun Origin Court. What if this woman wants to attack me?" Nangong Jian smiled before her divine will fluctuation disappeared. Zhou Xuanji could tell that this woman had already guessed that he had used the golden treasure basket. If it weren't for the golden treasure basket and the great Tao Source Stone being in his hands, she would have shed all pretense of cordiality. After thinking about it, he decided to leave this universe and cultivate in another universe. What if Nangong Jian could lock onto his position through the communication just now? Caution is the parent of safety. Zhou Xuanji had been schemed against so many times that he would overthink everything. He immediately left with his avatars. He could still break through the great Tao wall. After all, his body was about to become a great Tao body. After leaving this universe, he came to a purple universe filled with purple chi. He continued moving forward. He didn't know how many universes he had flown before he finally stopped. This universe was very similar to the Milky Way. There were many civilizations that were inclined to body cultivation. He found an uninhabited star to stay and prepared to cultivate in seclusion. On the other side, in the universe where he was before, Nangong Jian suddenly appeared on the meteorite where he was before. She furrowed her brow and murmured, "This kid is really cunning." She immediately tracked Zhou Xuanji's aura. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. Although Zhou Xuanji's cultivation had improved a lot, he was still far from breaking through to the Tao Treading Saint realm. So, he focused his attention on the greatly divine suppressor technique. When he broke through to the second level, he might be able to comprehend the method to break through to the Tao Treading Saint realm. On this day, he suddenly sensed that a creature had descended on this star. He scanned with his divine will and found a young man in a Taoist robe. He looked to be only 12 or 13 years old. He looked fair and clean. He seemed to be looking for something and was flying around. This little monk's cultivation was probably around heavenly law true God. Chi nurturing, foundation building, enlightening, inner pellet, soul fountain, astral soul, astral projection, spirit refinement, great realization. 9 tribulations scattered immortal, 10th revolution golden immortal, void extreme immortal, heavenly law true God, universe heaven level 18, connecting heaven level 10, saint realm level 9. Tao treading saint. Tao ancestor. That was according to his understanding. Below the saint realm, the cultivation realms of each universe were different. But all in all, there was a significant difference between each level. It was still very easy to distinguish. This star was very big for the little Taoist. And he was far away from Zhou Xuanji. So Zhou Xuanji didn't care about him and continued to cultivate. Both sides didn't interfere with each other. Another half a year passed. The little Taoist had unknowingly approached Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji immediately left and came to the other side of the star so that the little Taoist couldn't see him. "Little brother, what are you hiding here for? If you want to cultivate, I can take you to a place." A familiar laughter resounded across the entire star. A familiar laughter resounded across the entire star, and Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes in shock. The little Taoist looked up fearfully. "Nangong Jiayin." She came directly to Zhou Xuanji and looked at him with a smile. Zhou Xuanji sighed and asked, "What do you want?" "This woman is too powerful. She can even find me." Nangong Jiayin said with a smile, "Give me back the great Tao source stone and the golden treasure basket." Zhou Xuanji didn't waste any time and directly threw the two treasures to her. If Nangong Jiayin wanted to snatch them, he couldn't do anything about it. "Don't be so afraid, I won't eat you," Nangong Jiayin said with a smile after checking them. Nangong Jiayin said with a smile after checking it. As she spoke, she began to wander around Zhou Xuanji. It was unknown what she was looking at. Zhou Xuanji could feel a vague murderous intent. This woman is hesitating whether to kill me or not. Chapter 676. You want to kill me? Zhou Xuanji asked with squinted eyes. He was calm and composed. He wasn't afraid of Nangong Jiayin at all. Nangong Jiayin rolled her eyes at him and said, "Little brother, don't you feel guilty saying this? To be fair, since you and I met, how have I treated you? You have consumed so much of my luck. I haven't even scolded you yet. Why are you acting like a victim?" Zhou Xuanji's expression became unnatural. He was indeed in the wrong. He sighed and said, "I didn't know what you wanted before. If I can do it, I will try my best to make it up to you." Nangong Jiayin covered her mouth and chuckled upon hearing this. Her smile was as beautiful as a flower. "Don't worry, I won't argue with you. I just hope that you can be honest with me. If I had any bad intentions towards you, you would have died 1,000 times over. You even hid your whereabouts from me. Now we are a team, and we are working together in secret. I hope you and I can stand on the same line in the future, understand?" Nangong Jiayin stopped smiling and said seriously. Zhou Xuanji nodded and asked, "What do you see in me?" With his cultivation, he wasn't worthy of Nangong Jiayin's attention. As for his aptitude, it wasn't worth Nangong Jiayin's effort. You will understand in the future. Don't worry, I will still need your help in the future. Before that, I will also try my best to help you become stronger. Do you want to break through to the Tao Treading Saint realm? Let's go, I will take you to a place, Nangong Jiayin said with a smile. Nangong Jiayin chuckled. After saying that, she turned around and prepared to leave. At this moment, she suddenly noticed something. With a cry of surprise, she waved her right hand, and the little Taoist appeared in front of her. The little Taoist was taken aback. He quickly retreated in fear. But soon, he was frozen in place. This kid is not bad. His aptitude is estimated to be around 7 or 8 stars. Do you want to take him as a Tao child? Nangong Jiayin asked Zhou Xuanji with a smile. Zhou Xuanji was indifferent to this. The little Taoist suddenly realized that he could move. He slumped on the ground, swallowed his saliva, and asked, "Who are you?" Nangong Jiayin glanced at him disdainfully and said with a smile, "Little kid, we are far beyond the heavenly saints. Do you want to worship us as your master?" The kid behind me is only 500 years old and has already reached the overlord saint level. The heavenly saints in this universe can't even stand a chance against him. The little Taoist widened his eyes and had a look of disbelief. He immediately came back to his senses and came up to Zhou Xuanji. He continuously kowtowed and begged, "Please take me in and help me cultivate." Looking at his excited expression, it wasn't completely out of surprise, but as if he had grasped onto a life-saving straw. He reckoned that this kid carried a blood feud with him. Zhou Xuanji thought for a while and nodded lightly. After some communication, Zhou Xuanji learned that this little Daoist's name was Mu Xuanfeng. He looked young, but he was already 1,000 years old. As for his past, Zhou Xuanji did not ask about it. Then, under the leadership of Nangong Jiayin, they quickly left. With Mu Xuanfeng's help, Zhou Xuanji believed that she would no longer make things difficult for him. Otherwise, why would he go through the trouble of asking him to accept a Daoist boy? Nangong Jiayin took out a feather fan and let the three of them ride on it. The feather fan burst out with a superb speed and directly escaped into the space-time tunnel. Along the way, Mu Xuanfeng was very excited, but he didn't dare to speak. "Where are we going?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He was very curious as to how he could easily enter the space-time tunnel. Could it be that he had to reach the Dao-treading Saint realm? "Let's go to a place with dense great Daos. It will help you break through to the Dao-treading Saint realm in one fell swoop. Anyway, the great Dao source stone is in your hands. As for the others, don't worry. They are all old monsters. They are smart and have the means to escape," Nangong Jiayin, who was standing in front, replied casually. Her eyes were drifting. No one knew what she was thinking. A place with dense great Daos. Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but look forward to it. He didn't say anything more and sat down cross-legged to cultivate. The atmosphere on the feather fan became silent. After 10 days, they came to a universe filled with red smoke. Many dried corpses were floating around. It was eerie and horrifying, making Mu Xuanfeng tremble in nervousness. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and looked up. He saw all kinds of dried corpses, most of them human. This place seemed to be an ancient battlefield. It was filled with an uneasy aura. "Is this the place you are talking about?" Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown. He felt that something was wrong here. Nangong Jiayin smiled mysteriously and said, "It's deeper. Don't worry, there will be no danger here. The reason why the aura is strange is because there are too many corpses of powerful cultivators here. Their great Daos are gathered here and will never disperse. For you, this is definitely a holy land for cultivation. But you can't stay here for too long. Otherwise, you will develop inner demons." Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but sweep his divine will and found that there were indeed many great Daos here. Many great Daos were very strong. He couldn't even see through them. If he cultivated here, he was confident that he could break through to the Dao-treading Saint realm within 100 years. If he could have a way to break through, he would save even more time. Soon, they came to an isolated island. Countless corpses were floating around, forming a white ribbon. There was a thatched hut on the island. There was a simple stone bed under a tree. Obviously, someone had lived here. "I discovered this universe by accident. I have cast an array. No one can find this place except me. You should cultivate here," Nangong Jiayin said with a smile after entering the island. After entering the island, Nangong Jiayin said with a smile, her tone somewhat complacent. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He glanced at Mu Xuanfeng before waving his hand. Mu Xuanfeng walked up to him with a respectful look on his face. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Do you like swords?" Mu Xuanfeng was taken aback. He hesitantly said, "Dao cultivators have flying swords, but I'm not deeply involved in the sword Dao. I'm best at the alchemy Dao. I like to refine pills." Zhou Xuanji slightly raised his brow upon hearing this. He immediately took out a handful of pill recipes from the supreme storage and handed them to Mu Xuanfeng. These pill recipes were collected from his enemies over the hundreds of years he had been wandering around. Before Mu Xuanfeng could speak, Zhou Xuanji had already walked to the stone bed and started meditating. Nangong Jiayin sat on the edge of the island not far away, playing with the great Dao source stone in her hand. No one knew what she was thinking. Seeing this, Mu Xuanfeng had no choice but to find a place to study these pill recipes. After entering a state of cultivation, Zhou Xuanji immediately started cultivating the greatly divine suppressor technique. He didn't ask Nangong Jiayin about the cultivation method. He was afraid that this woman would play tricks on him. Moreover, asking like this would damage his reputation. Only by breaking through to the second layer of the greatly divine suppressor technique could he obtain the method to break through to the Tao-treading saint realm. Time passed by minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. Sword owner has reached 520 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations, the sword owner has obtained, Mysterious Tao, Almighty Divine Snake Sword of Controlling Taos, Sword Shield Art. The sword spirit's voice suddenly rang out, startling Zhou Xuanji into opening his eyes. Mysterious Tao Legendary Sword. A legendary sword higher than the Primordial Chaos Legendary Sword. He was overwhelmed with emotions. He had been looking forward to this day ever since he entered the Kunlun Origin Court. The Mysterious Tao Legendary Sword had finally arrived. Chapter 677. Sword Name, Almighty Divine Snake Sword of Controlling Waygrade. Profound Path. Description. Above the universe, there is the Almighty Divine Snake, which feeds on the Great Tao. This sword is transformed from the Almighty Divine Snake and can devour the Great Tao. The user of this sword must be at least at the intermediate Tao-treading saint realm. The Almighty Divine Serpent feeds on the Great Tao? Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. Such a domineering divine snake. However, this sword required the cultivation of a middle-stage Tao-treading venerable, so he could only turn his anticipation into motivation for cultivation. Then, he started to inherit the sword radiance protection technique. It looked like a cultivation technique, but it was actually an existence similar to a divine ability. The sword light shield art could create many sword lights to protect one's body without any blind spots. Its defensive power was extremely strong. At the same time, one's senses would be even more sensitive in this state. After receiving the inheritance, Zhou Xuanji felt very satisfied. He liked this kind of divine ability, which could be superimposed on other divine abilities. No matter how fancy a sword technique was, it couldn't compare to his explosive state. Then, he continued to cultivate. So far, he had been able to create 58 greatly clones. Once he achieved 100 Dali avatars, it would be the time for him to break through to the second tier. Over the years, Yi Jun had also contacted him. When he learned that he was cultivating with Nangong Jiayin, Yi Jun breathed a sigh of relief. They agreed to meet at the Void Boundary and return to the Kunlun Origin Court together. The other Tao ancestors had also encountered different kinds of problems. It was likely that they wouldn't be able to return to the Kunlun Origin Court in a short period of time. However, Yi Jun was very confident in them and claimed that this mission was considered completed. As long as he did not have to face Dao Hu Chiozuan, all troubles were nothing. Kid, we still have 10 years. After 10 years, we must leave. Nangong Jiayin's voice drifted over, causing Zhou Xuanji to open his eyes and look at her. He frowned and asked, "Isn't it 100 years? It's only been 5 years." He had just found the feeling, so he naturally didn't want to leave too early. "I have calculated that something is calculating our fate. If we stay here for too long, we will be exposed." Nangong Jiayin replied in a solemn tone. Dao Hu Chiozuan. Zhou Xuanji immediately thought of this name. Apart from this force, who else would pursue him so relentlessly? Not far away, Mu Xuanfeng listened nervously. Over the years, he had already felt the powerful aura of Zhou Xuanji when he was cultivating. He couldn't imagine how terrifying the existence chasing Zhou Xuanji and Nangong Jiayin would be. He shook his head and concentrated on refining pills, trying his best not to think about these things. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. Zhou Xuanji obtained another 23 legendary swords, but to him, they were all quite ordinary. His greatly avatars had reached 96, and he was very close to 100, but he had no choice but to leave. Nangong Jiayin was very decisive. Since she had said 10 years, she would do it without any hesitation. They left on the feather fan. Nangong Jiayin smiled and said, "Don't be disappointed. I think you are practicing some powerful cultivation method. On the way back, I will preach to you. How much you can comprehend will depend on your talent and comprehension." Zhou Xuanji nodded. He was indeed not too disappointed. Even if he couldn't complete the task given to him by Emperor Jin Yan, he could rely on the Dao Pagoda to break through. There were many paths, and he didn't have to choose one. He stopped cultivating and calmed his mind. After entering the Kunlun Origin Court, his heart seemed to fluctuate a little, which made him a little dissatisfied. The feather fan flew into the space-time tunnel. The three of them didn't speak, and it seemed very quiet. An hour later, Nangong Jiayin began to preach. The Tao of Jade Blue pursues its Tao source, seeks the spirit of myriad worlds, and casts its soul with myriad rules. If there is one vitality, it can create a prosperous myriad worlds. If there are two vitality, it can give birth to the great Tao. Zhou Xuanji's ears twitched. He immediately began cultivating the greatly divine suppressor technique. Mu Xuanfeng was stunned. This was the first time he had heard of Tao. He was a little surprised. Soon, he noticed that Nangong Jiayin's voice had some kind of special power that made him want to close his eyes and cultivate. Next, he began cultivating just like Zhou Xuanji. As a Tao ancestor, Nangong Jiayin's cultivation was naturally broad and profound. Compared to old immortal, she was stronger. With the help of her Tao voice, it didn't take long for Zhou Xuanji to condense another Great Li avatar. 97 Great Li avatars. He was only 3 Great Li avatars away from the second level of the Great Li divine suppressor technique. Nangong Jiayin's light voice echoed in the space-time tunnel. Zhou Xuanji suddenly had an idea. He opened up the realms in the 24-rank deep black lotus so that all creatures could hear Nangong Jiayin's Tao voice. For a moment, the demon realm, the northern wilderness region, the Milky Way galaxy, and the world in the lotus were all boiling. Everyone was in an uproar, but they soon calmed down because of Nangong Jiayin's Tao voice. Cultivation had been popularized in all the realms. Even those creatures who hadn't stepped on the path of cultivation could subconsciously attract the spiritual qi of the world around them. Nangong Jiayin seemed to have noticed something. She shot a meaningful glance at Zhou Xuanji. This kid actually brought the creatures of the 4 realms with him. Should I say that he is benevolent or ambitious? Nangong Jiayin thought to herself. But she didn't stop talking. She continued to speak. After 10 days, Zhou Xuanji finally created 100 Great Li avatars. He then cultivated the second level of the Great Li divine suppressor technique. The way the saint energy in his body was channeled suddenly changed. Somehow, he got the method to break through to the Tao treading saint realm. Tao treading saint, step on the Tao. As the name suggested, it was to step on the great Tao. Breaking the great Tao and incarnating into the great Tao was the sovereign. Above the great Tao, one would be the Tao ancestor. Their lifespan would be above the great Tao. In fact, after breaking through to the saint realm, lifespan was no longer important for cultivators. Most cultivators above the saint realm died in the hands of the great Tao rules or enemies. There were almost no cultivators who had exhausted their lifespan. Zhou Xuanji began to ponder. Although he had absorbed countless Tao energy and seen all kinds of great Taos, what was his own great Tao? My Tao is the sword Tao. Zhou Xuanji quickly figured it out. He was born for the sword. His soul was a sword. His body was a sword. Naturally, his Tao was also a sword. He wanted to be the Sword Emperor. He was no longer the only Sword Emperor under the heavenly law but the only Sword Emperor in countless universes. The Emperor of the Sword Tao belonged only to him. Zhou Xuanji entered a state of epiphany. The surrounding invisible great Tao gathered around him, forming a gale. This is, Mu Xuanfeng was startled by the gale. He looked at Zhou Xuanji in horror. What is he going to do? Nangong Jiayin looked back. Her eyes were filled with shock. It's impossible, this kid wants to break through to the Tao treading saint realm. Is he crazy? Nangong Jiayin's beautiful face turned pale. It was a very long process to go from Overlord Saint level 9 to Tao Treading Saint. Countless creatures needed a long time to comprehend their own great Tao. It could take hundreds of millions of years to tens of thousands of years. There were so many great Taos, but every creature had a great Tao that was most suitable for them. Except for that great Tao, no other great Tao could help one become a Tao Treading Saint. Zhou Xuanji found it so quickly. A great Tao wasn't something that would appear whenever one thought of it. Unless one was a legendary genius, they could directly create a great Tao that would shake the origin court and cause anomalies in countless universes. Chapter 678. Zhou Xuanji had no idea about Nangong Jiayin's shock. He was already fully immersed in Tao enlightenment. After coming into contact with the great Tao for so many years, he had never encountered the great Tao of the sword. Even in the space-time tunnel, there was no sign of the great way of the sword. He did not panic. Instead, he created his own sword Tao. Back in the Wanshan Great Thousand, the old immortal had already trained him to comprehend the Tao will. From then on, his own great Tao was born. This type of great Tao was very mystical and weak. Compared to other great Taos, it was like a speck of dust facing a star. Now, he wanted to help his Tao insight transform into the grand Tao of the sword. He did not need to rely on the power of other great Taos. He only wanted to rely on himself to become a Tao Treading Saint. The sound of the sword vibrating came from his body. A ring of silver light appeared around him and quickly expanded into a silver ball of light. Sword Light Protection Art. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that this light was formed by countless light swords stacked on top of each other. It was a spectacular sight. Nangong Jiayin's eyes lit up. She had known Zhou Xuanji for so long, but this was the first time she had seen this kid use his divine ability. What a beautiful sword Tao divine art. This aura was not inferior to an early-stage Tao Treading Venerable. Mu Xuanfeng was dumbfounded. What a powerful spirit. He felt that his body and soul were about to be crushed. What kind of cultivation realm did he have to possess such a powerful aura? Nangong Jiayin noticed his discomfort. With a wave of her right hand, a ball of light flew out of her palm and wrapped around Mu Xuanfeng's body, reducing the pressure on him. At the same time, in Zhou Xuanji's spiritual world, he was spreading out his Tao will. He used the sword light protection art as a medium to condense his own sword Tao. The feather fan continued moving forward. Nangong Jiayin's voice was still echoing in the space-time tunnel. There was no obstruction along the way. Dao Hu Chiozuan didn't appear. It seemed calm, but Nangong Jiayin never closed her eyes. Half a month later, Zhou Xuanji woke up from his state of enlightenment and frowned slightly. His sword Tao was about to condense, but it was lacking a little. This feeling was very strange and indescribable. No matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find it. Nangong Jiayin's Tao voice also stopped. She looked back and said with a smile, "Don't be discouraged. You are already half a step into the Tao Treading Saint realm, so don't think too much about it." She sighed in her heart. Was this 12-star aptitude? How terrifying would the legendary 16-star aptitude be? Wouldn't he be able to create whatever he thought of? Nangong Jiayin shook her head. She couldn't imagine someone with superstar talent. However, Zhou Xuanji's talent made her more confident. She naturally had a reason for helping Zhou Xuanji. The more powerful Zhou Xuanji was, the happier she was. Everyone can only master one great Tao? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. Mastering a great Tao could make one a Tao Treading Saint. What about 2 or 3? Nangong Jiayin replied, Of course you can have more than one, but the physical body and soul are only so big. If you divide the space to other great ways, it will inevitably affect the power of the original great way. Zhou Xuanji understood this. This was why the Supreme Legendary Sword System wanted him to focus on the way of the sword. Alright, how long will it take to reach the Kunlun Origin Court? Zhou Xuanji asked. After comprehending for so long, he felt a little mentally exhausted. This was no ordinary epiphany. He was still creating a sword Dao. Soon, I guess. I didn't dare to go too fast in case I affected you. Nangong Jian smiled as she looked ahead with a meaningful look in her eyes. Following her gaze, he could vaguely see the purple sea of fog at the edge of the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji looked at Mu Xuanfeng and waved his hand. Mu Xuanfeng immediately came over with a look of awe. He didn't dare to speak first. You like alchemy the most? Zhou Xuanji asked, staring into his eyes. Hearing this, Mu Xuanfeng's heart skipped a beat. He could already tell that Zhou Xuanji was a sword cultivator. Was he going to be expelled? He replied nervously, yes, if you want. No. You can stay like this. I happen to lack an alchemy genius, Zhou Xuanji said, waving his hand. He didn't need a sword cultivator. There were tens of millions of them in Emperor Sword Court. Alchemy cultivators were very rare. There were some in Emperor Sword Court, but Mu Xuanfeng had 7-star or 8-star aptitude. Such an alchemy cultivator would probably be very popular in the Kunlun origin court. Mu Xuanfeng was overjoyed when he heard this. He immediately thanked Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji said, I will put you in my artifact. Find a place to cultivate first. Don't wander around. I will let you out after some time. Mu Xuanfeng naturally didn't dare to object. He was also afraid that Zhou Xuanji and Nangong Jian would be in danger. Next, he was put into Zhou Xuanji's lotus world. With his cultivation, he couldn't set off any waves in Emperor Sword Court. After all, he only had the strength of a heavenly law true god. TSK, what do you want to do with so many creatures? Nangong Jian asked curiously. Her eyes fell on Zhou Xuanji, looking him up and down. Zhou Xuanji shrugged his shoulders and said, they are the ones I care about along the way. I don't want to give them up. We are walking on the path of cultivation. There will always be someone pushing us from behind. Nangong Jian shook her head and broke into a smile. She looked ahead again. After half an hour, they flew out of the space-time tunnel and came to the void boundary. Zhou Xuanji looked ahead and could already see the outline of the Kunlun origin court. In the dim void, the Kunlun origin court was so eye-catching. We are finally safe, Nangong Jian said with a smile. She threw half a great Dao source stone to Zhou Xuanji with her right hand. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. I have a share. The great Dao source stone in the supreme warehouse was a necessity for the mission. This half a great Dao source stone was his reward for helping Nangong Jian. But he had already consumed too much of Nangong Jian's luck. Nangong Jian raised the corner of her mouth and said, I am magnanimous. Don't be estranged. The path of cultivation is long. You and I still have a long time ahead of us. Hurry up and break through after you go back. There will be good things waiting for you. Good things. Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. Could it be related to the mission that heavenly sage Shen Yan secretly gave me? After a while, they rushed into the majestic purple mist. Nangong Jian raised her ID card high as the void boundary war god imprint burst into a brilliant light. Welcome back, void boundary war gods, a vast voice resounded. It wasn't the void boundary god that Zhou Xuanji was familiar with. After entering the Kunlun origin court, Nangong Jian flew to the void boundary palace with him. At the same time, she contacted the other members of Xian Mao through her ID card and gathered them in the void boundary palace. Zhou Xuanji noticed that there were more creatures than before. It seemed that something big was about to happen. He captured the discussions of the creatures with his divine will. The superstar competition that happens once every million years is about to begin. Superstar competition, what's that? Only geniuses with more than 9-star aptitude can participate. There is only one cultivation requirement, and that is to reach the Dao-treading saint realm. As long as you achieve excellent results in the superstar competition, you can get the Great Dao baptism of the origin court. Any Great Dao can be improved. Superstar competition. Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. How could I miss this opportunity? Nangong Jiayin glanced at him and said with a smile, "It seems that you already have an idea. I will go and see your performance with my own eyes." Wonderful Book House. Chapter 679. On the way to the Void Boundary Palace, Zhou Xuanji kept thinking about the superstar competition. He asked Nangong Jiayin about it. The superstar competition was still more than 30 years away. At that time, all the origin cities would use spells to broadcast the competition. A grand event that happened once in a million years was enough to attract the attention of the entire Kunlun origin court. Many living beings who were wandering outside would rush back to take a look. This liveliness was similar to the Wuxia people celebrating the Spring Festival. At that time, the various divine ranges would also participate in the superstar competition to motivate their clansmen. After a while, when they arrived at the Void Boundary Palace, Yi Jun and the others had been waiting for them for a long time. They surrounded them and asked about their well-being. When Zhou Xuanji took out the Great Dao Source Stone, they all felt a sense of relief. Even though it was only for a moment, Zhou Xuanji still sensed it. "Let's go and see Emperor Zhenyan." Yi Jun smiled, and the other members of Xian Mao followed him up the stairs. Along the way, everyone kept asking Zhou Xuanji if he wanted to participate in the superstar competition. They could all see that Zhou Xuanji was very close to becoming a Dao-treading saint. He had every hope of participating in the superstar competition. Soon, they arrived at the balcony where Heavenly Venerable Zhenyan was. When Yi Jun handed over the Great Dao Source Stone, Heavenly Venerable Zhenyan nodded in satisfaction. "This mission has been completed perfectly. Due to Dao Hu Qiuzuan's intervention, your reward will be increased to 2 million merit points each," Heavenly Sage Zhenyan said. As he spoke, he took out his ID card, motioning Zhou Xuanji and the others to take out their ID cards. They took out their own identity cards and stuck them to Emperor Zhenyan's identity card, each receiving 2 million merit points. Taking back their identity cards, everyone had a smile on their faces. Heavenly Sage Zhenyan looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "At the beginning of the mission, I said that as long as Zhou Xuanji broke through to the Dao-treading saint realm, I would give him a reward and even allow him to take the Great Dao Source Stone for himself. But he didn't do so. He still considered the team." Hearing this, everyone looked at Zhou Xuanji in shock. Only Nangong Jiayin had a strange look on her face. This brat had already swallowed half a Great Dao Source Stone. Nangong Jiayin could only complain in her heart, not daring to say it out loud. Yi Jun praised, "Brother Xuanji is indeed an upright person. We are impressed. If it were them, they might not be able to withstand the test." The others spoke as well, and their impression of Zhou Xuanji greatly improved. Cultivate well. The next mission will be after the superstar competition. If you perform well, the Void Boundary Palace will reward you. Don't let us down, Emperor Zhenyan said with a smile. After saying that, he disappeared from the spot. The Dao ancestors all voiced their support for Zhou Xuanji. After chatting for a while, Zhou Xuanji followed Nangong Jiayin, Yi Jun, and Su Huang back to the origin city they came from. As soon as he walked out of the side hall of the Emptiness Boundary Martial God, Qingjiu appeared. It seemed like this guy had been waiting for a long time. "Senior, congratulations on completing your first mission as a Void Boundary War God." Qingjiu cupped his fists and smiled, a look of worship on his face. He was indeed shocked. Because Zhou Xuanji had become much more powerful. Even as a Dao-treading saint, he couldn't see through Zhou Xuanji. If this continued, Zhou Xuanji would surpass him soon. He was indeed a 12-star genius. Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile. He then bid farewell to Yi Jun and the others and quickly returned to the Longbo Divine Range. On the way, Qingjiu, like Yi Jun and the others, also asked Zhou Xuanji if he wanted to participate in the Ultrastar examination. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Of course, I will participate. This is my serendipity." Qingjiu couldn't help but look forward to it. After returning to the Longbo Divine Ranges Yu clan, Qingjiu went back to report to the Longbo Old Ancestor. Meanwhile, Zhou Xuanji returned to his residence. Xiao Hu, the old beggar, and the others were very excited to see him return. They curiously asked him about his experiences during this period of time. Zhou Xuanji didn't hide anything. They were all amazed by him. The old beggar was speechless and said, "You met Dao Hu Chiozuan and came back alive. You are really lucky." Xiao Hu glared at him and snorted, "Why? Are you disappointed?" These words made the old beggar stomp his feet in anger. His relationship with Zhou Xuanji was already a little awkward, and this brat still tried to sow discord between them. The man and the tiger began bickering. Zhou Xuanji noticed that Su Qing's eyes had become clear. He looked very calm standing behind everyone. He nodded and smiled at this senior brother as a greeting. In response, Su Qing looked a little nervous. After so many years, the old beggar, Su Qing, barbarian god Huang Luo, Gu Tianxia, and Buddha Yangling had all passed the first grade elimination. They had officially stepped into the Kunlun Origin Court and would fight for themselves in the future. Returning to the house, Zhou Xuanji entered the world in the lotus. He brought Mu Xuanfeng to Emperor Sword Court and introduced him to Daoya Old Man, Xiao Jinghong, and the others. He decided to bring Xian Xianghua and several connecting Heaven Level 10 cultivators from the Demon Realm into the Kunlun Origin Court. With Xian Xianghua's ability, she would be able to develop better in the Kunlun Origin Court. Xian Xianghua was very excited about this. Jiang Shui and Zhou Shaoxian were also very envious. If they weren't strong enough, Zhou Xuanji wouldn't have let them enter the Great Elimination. After staying in the world in the lotus for half a month, he brought Xian Xianghua and the others out and handed them over to Yu Zhongxiu to register. Knowing that Xian Xianghua was Zhou Xuanji's woman, Yu Zhongxiu's expression was a little strange. But she didn't look cold. Instead, she became more enthusiastic. No matter what she thought, she had to take good care of Xian Xianghua. If anything happened to Xian Xianghua, the Longbo Divine Range wouldn't be able to keep Zhou Xuanji. After giving a few instructions, Zhou Xuanji left alone and went to the Dao Tower in the Origin City to cultivate. In the same 4-star Dao room, he took out 5 avatars and the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus before he began to create his own Sword Dao. This time, he wouldn't come out until he broke through to Dao Treading Saint. 5 years later, Sword Owner has reached Dao Treading Saint realm. Gotcha started. Ding! Congratulations, Sword Owner obtained, God Slaying, Jade Queen Sword, 9 Extreme, Dragon Witch King Sword. Zhou Xuanji finally broke through to Dao Treading Saint realm. His great Dao of Sword was successfully condensed, filling the entire Dao room. His magic energy had completely transformed into Dao energy, and his body had completely transformed into a great Dao body. Because the Sword Owner has transcended the mortal body and transformed into a great Dao, you have obtained an epic serendipity. If you become a Dao ancestor within 1,000 years, you will obtain the wish-fulfilling sword. Let me announce the information of the wish-fulfilling sword first, the sword spirit's voice continued. Sword name, wish-fulfilling sword grade, unknown description, a mysterious sword that can fulfill any wish, except for invincibility and wishes related to the supreme legendary sword system. This legendary sword can only be used once every 10,000 years. Fulfill any wish? Once every 10,000 years. There's no cultivation limit. Zhou Xuanji's eyes widened as his breathing quickened. There's such a heaven-defying legendary sword? Any wish, if I encounter an enemy that I can't defeat, can I kill the enemy straight away? Zhou Xuanji's imagination ran wild. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. It wasn't impossible for him to break through to Dao Ancestor within 1,000 years. Chapter 680. Any wish? Can I have a golden treasure basket? Zhou Xuanji asked in his heart. Ever since he used the golden treasure basket, he had been addicted to it. The sword spirit replied, "It should be possible. I want to become the sovereign, can I?" Probably not. For the current you, it is equivalent to asking for invincibility. I want to have endless luck, can I? This is the requirement of invincibility. Who can kill you with endless luck? Then I want an immortal body? Yes, but only the body. If the soul is destroyed, you will still die. What about an immortal soul? The sword spirit fell into silence after hearing Zhou Xuanji's question. The wish-fulfilling sword had yet to appear, but the sword master had already begun to imagine, leaving the sword spirit at a loss. Zhou Xuanji stopped thinking about it and began to adjust his Tao energy. The difference between before and after the breakthrough was like heaven and earth. Tao energy and saint energy were even more incomparable. He felt that his strength had increased by at least 100 times. No wonder the threshold of the superstar competition was Tao treading saint. Now, he could truly feel the existence of Sword Tao. If he used Sword Tao rules, it would definitely be extremely lethal. After 7 days, he got up and left. When he came to the first floor of the Tao Tower, the women in front of the stone platform all looked at him with admiration. Senior, you have become the first in the citywide breakthrough ranking and obtained 13 million merit points, the cold and elegant woman reported respectfully. The cold and elegant woman said respectfully. Their expressions were complicated. Zhou Xuanji had been cultivating in the Tao Tower for a long time. His merit points were increasing, making them speechless and at the same time, admiring him. This is 12-star aptitude. Zhou Xuanji handed over his ID card in a good mood. At this moment, an arm hooked around his neck. He did not resist but smiled instead. It was Xian Xianghua. She was wearing a close-fitting purple robe and still had a veil over her face. Her hair was combed into a bun, looking beautiful and noble. 13 million merit points, my dear husband, you are really amazing, Xian Xianghua said with a smile, squinting her eyes. Xian Xianghua squinted her eyes and smiled, looking very happy. This was the first time she showed such a cute and helpless look in front of Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile, I will show you around later. Just tell me what you want. The women behind the stone platform looked at Xian Xianghua with envy. So he also knew how to be gentle to women. Xian Xianghua smiled and said, I've already passed the first elimination, and I've directly broken through to Overlord Saint Level 1. Amazing, right? She possessed the heart of the demon realm and the exterminating divine eyes, so her talent was naturally outstanding. She had obtained 7-star aptitude and was being nurtured by the longbow divine range. She had to admit that the exterminating divine eyes were indeed powerful. After coming to the Kunlun Origin Court, Xian Xianghua clearly noticed that her cultivation talent was improving. What she did not know was that it was because Zhou Xuanji was becoming more powerful. Their exterminating divine eyes were a pair and could affect and sense each other. After retrieving the identity card, the two walked out of the Tao Pagoda. Qingjiu had been waiting for a long time. He said respectfully, Senior, you have successfully broken through. Should we register for the superstar competition? Zhou Xuanji nodded and brought Xian Xianghua along as they followed behind him. On the way, he asked Xian Xianghua about her experiences in the Great Elimination. He had to admit that Xian Xianghua was really an old devil. In the Great Elimination, she used all kinds of tricks and often killed enemies above her cultivation level. She was also very decisive when she encountered opportunities. That was how she could break through to Overlord Saint Level 1. Buy more cultivation treasures for Jiang Shui and her son, especially Xiao Xian. She is very talented. You have to nurture her well, Xian Xianghua said with a smile. Xian Xianghua smiled. She was in a good mood. She regarded Zhou Xiaoxian as her own. Whenever she had good things, she would often think of Zhou Xiaoxian first. This was also the reason why Zhou Xiaoxian often talked about Aunt Xian. Zhou Xuanji nodded and instructed Qingjiu, I will trouble you with this matter. I will give you 3 million merit points. Buy as much as you can. No need to save for me. He was very reassured about Qingjiu. After knowing him for so long, Qingjiu had always done his best. He had left a good impression on him. Leave it to me. Qingjiu patted his chest and smiled. After half an hour, they came to the center of the origin city. There was a registration square for the superstar competition here. One needed to verify their identity card before they could enter the teleportation array to register. Since only the registrant could enter alone, Zhou Xuanji asked Qingjiu to take Xian Xianghua to buy cultivation treasures. He also transferred 5 million merit points to Xian Xianghua. Over the years, he had earned more than 20 million merit points in the Dao Pagoda. When Jiang Shui came to the Kunlun origin court, he would also give her the same amount. In his eyes, merit points were nothing. After all, he still had the identity of Void Boundary War God. He entered the building and took out his identity card for the old man waiting in front of the teleportation array. Zhou Xuanji, your name is really well known recently, the old man said with a smile. He then returned the identity card to Zhou Xuanji before activating the teleportation array. Zhou Xuanji smiled and stepped into the teleportation array. As soon as a bright light appeared, he felt the power of time and space surrounding him. After becoming a Dao-treading saint, his perception of the great Dao had become more profound. Soon, he walked out of the teleportation array and saw a dark world in front of him. Thunder clouds rolled, the ground was scorched black, and there were many magma cracks in the ground. There were many teleportation arrays around, and several creatures were stepping out from other teleportation arrays. In front of him, there was a huge stele standing on the ground. Many golden words were floating above it. Ingzhuge, 17-star aptitude. Meng Shen, 16-star aptitude. Chang Xingshao, 16-star aptitude. Great Sorrow Momo, 16-star aptitude. Rulai Fu, 16-star aptitude. Zhou Xuanji's eyelids twitched wildly. 17-star aptitude. How the hell did they give birth to this? He glanced down and found that there were no less than 10 existences with 16-star aptitude. There were more than 500 of them, and only they had 12-star aptitude. These guys were definitely geniuses from the top 1,000 divine ranges. The Kunlun origin court was very big. The higher the ranking of the divine ranges, the more unimaginable it was. He took a deep breath and walked forward. In front of the huge stele, a ghost-like white-haired man was floating. His hands were in his long pockets. His face was expressionless, and his eyes were empty. Zhou Xuanji walked up to him. Before he could ask, the white-haired man spoke first. Put your ID card on the superstar sacred stele, and you can sign up. Indifferent. Zhou Xuanji enjoyed a completely different treatment from before. It was enough to show that a 12-star aptitude was not worth mentioning here. He took out his ID card and put it on the superstar sacred stele. Soon, his name appeared in the position of 537th. He turned around and was about to leave. At this moment, a dragon-like roar came from a teleportation array not far away. A true dragon covered in red scales crawled out of the teleportation array. It was 30 meters long and looked ferocious and domineering. A man in silver battle armor was riding on its back. Among the people present, only he came on a mount. It could be seen that his identity was not simple. Chapter 681. Yo, Ingzhuge can also be ranked first. It seems that this year's superstar competition won't do. The silver-armored man smiled proudly, then rode the red dragon to the superstar sacred tablet. With a wave of his right hand, he smashed his identity card onto the superstar sacred tablet. Then, his name appeared in second place. Chu Machin, 17-star aptitude. Second only to Ingzhuge. Seeing this scene, Chu Machin frowned and suddenly clamped his legs together, startling the red dragon so much that it let out a dragon roar and began to writhe in place. The dozens of living beings in the surroundings couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. 17-star aptitude, Chu Machin, isn't he the genius of star divine range? Divine pulse of star, the top 100 transcendent existences. Too strong. How does it feel to have 17-star aptitude? Chu Machin snorted in displeasure at the discussion around him. He took back his identity card and told the red dragon to turn around and leave. Soon, he disappeared into the teleportation array. As soon as he left, the pressure on this world abruptly decreased. Zhou Xuanji could not see through Chu Mochen. This guy was very powerful. He gave off a feeling that he was even stronger than Yi Jun. It was as if he was facing Empyrean Jin Yen. The Kunlun Origin Court is really a place where there is always a higher mountain. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and laughed as he walked forward. The superstar competition was not just about sparring. There were all kinds of competitions. For example, the Divine Ability Appreciation Competition was a competition to see whose divine ability was more spectacular and shocking. There was also the Speed Ratio, the Strength Ratio, the Dao Power Ratio, the Dao Technique Ratio, and so on. It was just like the Olympics on Earth. It was precisely because of this that the superstar competition seemed so interesting. It could make countless creatures rush back from other universes. The various spars between the top geniuses were extremely entertaining. This was because geniuses were all proud and arrogant, and it was easy for them to not care about others' feelings. It could even lead to a fight between divine ranges, which would ultimately affect the situation of the Kunlun Origin Court. However, every superstar competition would evolve into a stage for the top 1,000 divine ranges to display their strength, deepening their position in the hearts of all living beings. After leaving the teleportation portal, Zhou Xuanji went to look for Xian Xianghua and Qingjiu. They were still on the street. Zhou Xuanji did not spend too much time after all. Soon, he met up with the other two. Xian Xianghua was very curious about the other end of the teleportation array, and Zhou Xuanji did not hide it from her. When Xian Xianghua and Qingjiu found out that the highest aptitude was 17 stars, they were both shocked. The Longbow Divine Range didn't have any geniuses participating in the superstar competition before, so Qingjiu didn't know about the superstar sacred steel. In the past, they were just there to watch the show. This kind of Kunlun Origin Court is more challenging. But unfortunately, with her aptitude, it was impossible for her to participate in the superstar competition. She could only participate in the other exciting events of the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji gave a slight smile and said, "Hurry up. When the time comes, you and I can go to the Dao room to cultivate. I will also teach you." A Dao room could allow several people to cultivate at the same time, and the amount of merit points consumed was the same. However, one more person would definitely absorb more spiritual energy and Dao power. 8 hours later, they came to a 4-star Dao room. As usual, Zhou Xuanji took out 5 clones and the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. Xian Xianghua asked curiously, "You have another clone? This is the Panjin you were talking about?" Zhou Xuanji nodded and smiled, "That's right." After that, he taught Xian Xianghua the greatly divine suppressor art. Back then, Xian Xianghua had also imparted her cultivation technique to him, so he wanted to be the same as before. When he was weak, she could only pamper him. Now that he was strong, she should be pampered. After half an hour, Xian Xianghua exclaimed in admiration, "What an exquisite cultivation technique. Little husband, your serendipity is really amazing." No matter where he went, Zhou Xuanji could always obtain serendipity. She couldn't help but admire him. At the same time, she was very moved. She did not misjudge him. No matter what achievements Zhou Xuanji had, he treated her sincerely. "Okay, let's start cultivating," Zhou Xuanji said with a gentle smile. Zhou Xuanji said with a gentle smile. After that, he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Xian Xianghua followed suit and began cultivating. The news that Zhou Xuanji had become the top cultivator in the Origin City breakthrough ranking quickly spread in the nearby divine ranges. At the same time, the news that he had signed up for the superstar competition also spread. The creatures of the Longbow Divine Range were proud of him. They held their heads up high wherever they went. For a while, the Longbow Divine Range's status in the nearby Kunlun universe began to rise. Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao, Gu Tianxia, and the others also began to choose their first profession. Everything was on the right track. In the void, Ren Niming flew quickly. He looked terrified. He looked back from time to time, sweating profusely. Damn it. How long is it going to chase me? Why can it leave the heavenly law universe? Ren Niming gnashed his teeth. His eyes were filled with despair. If this continued, he would definitely die. He was not willing. He didn't want it to end like this. Where do you think you can run to? A hoarse voice came from behind, giving Ren Niming goosebumps. He didn't look back but desperately accelerated. From now on, I will become the only destiny, the supreme destiny in countless universes. The hoarse voice came again. Ren Niming couldn't help but look back. Immediately, his pupils dilated as a black shadow occupied his eyes. Time passed quickly. 10 years had passed. Zhou Xuanji's cultivation didn't improve, but his Dao energy grew a lot. He had completely stabilized his sword Dao. The harvest was not bad. Xian Xianghua broke through to Overlord Saint level 3 and could already condense 5 Great Li avatars. The two left the Dao room. Xian Xianghua didn't want to consume Zhou Xuanji's merit points anymore. She wanted to find a profession to earn merit points herself. Zhou Xuanji took her to the Vocation Palace. As for Qingjiu, he didn't wait outside the Dao Tower. When they arrived at the Vocation Palace, the two strolled around unhurriedly. The profession that Xian Xianghua wanted was very similar to Void Boundary War God. There were tests, irregular rewards, and no upper or lower limit. After a while, Zhou Xuanji suddenly stopped. A man appeared in front of him. Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua frowned at the same time. The man was dressed in white. His face and figure were exactly the same as Zhou Xuanji's, except that he had white hair and a weathered gaze. Enemy? Xian Xianghua asked softly, staring at him with a sharp gaze. Zhou Xuanji didn't speak. He was also very confused. The other party looked at him calmly. When their eyes met, he felt an inexplicable palpitation. Anyone would feel weird when they saw someone who looked exactly like them. At this moment, the white-haired man raised his right hand and touched his chest, making a gesture of digging his heart out. The corner of his mouth rose, looking unruly. Who are you? Zhou Xuanji asked. The other party obviously knew him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such a provocative gesture. The creatures around them also stopped and looked at them with a weird expression. The white-haired man laughed coldly and said, "The person who will end you, Zhou Xuanji. Just wait, you will die miserably." After speaking, he walked straight toward Zhou Xuanji, brushing past him. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji felt an extremely strong murderous intent. Even if he tried to restrain it, he was still shocked. Chapter 682. Smack. Zhou Xuanji grabbed the white-haired man's wrist and said, "If you want to kill me, you should at least leave your name, right?" The white-haired man looked back at him and laughed coldly. "Then you can call me Sword Emperor Slayer." After that, his right hand turned into nothingness. He broke free from Zhou Xuanji's grip and continued to walk forward. Sword Emperor Slayer. This brat was provoking him. Xian Xianghua said softly, "He doesn't look simple. But he is so arrogant. He will surely die a horrible death." She had already developed a blind trust in Zhou Xuanji. So many seemingly invincible enemies were defeated by Zhou Xuanji. What was this Sword Emperor Slayer to her? Zhou Xuanji smiled and continued forward with Xian Xianghua. There were countless jobs in the Vocation Palace, and it was difficult to keep track. Every once in a while, new jobs would be born and some would die out. Xian Xianghua had 7-star talent and could choose many jobs. Since Zhou Xuanji wanted to rest, he patiently chose for her. Xian Xianghua's divine sense captured a massive amount of information from the wall. Soon, she picked the jobs that interested her. They went to learn about them one by one. Not all jobs were like Void Boundary War God. Most of the job recruiters were like salesmen, extremely passionate. Finally, Xian Xianghua chose the Imperial Demon Official. They were responsible for patrolling the universe around the Origin City. There were also Imperial Demon Official, Imperial Barbarian Official, Imperial Dragon Official, and so on. Zhou Xuanji waited for Xian Xianghua outside the side palace. An hour later, Xian Xianghua returned with a man who was giving off a dense demonic aura behind her. "Fairy, we will be teammates from now on." "You must," the man said with a smile. He was wearing heavy armor and had wild hair. His cultivation was at level 9 Overlord Saint. Xian Xianghua ignored him and hugged Zhou Xuanji's arm, which froze the man's smile. Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and asked, "Who is this guy?" Xian Xianghua shook her head with a smile, "I don't know. Let's go home. I will serve you well tonight." She said this in a sweet and seductive tone intentionally. The man's face turned green immediately, as though he had eaten a fly. He looked at Zhou Xuanji's face and cried out in shock in his heart, "Zhou! Zhou Xuanji!" He immediately cupped his fist at Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile, "Senior Zhou's woman. I will help her as much as I can." After that, he pretended to be generous and left. Zhou Xuanji was a super genius that everyone in this city knew about. Not long ago, he was ranked first on the breakthrough ranking and became a Dao-treading saint. Such an existence was not someone he could offend. Only by being sensible can one live longer. Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua looked at each other and smiled. Then, they left the Vocation Palace and returned to the Longbow Divine Ranges Yu clan. In the next period of time, Zhou Xuanji returned to the Lotus World to teach Emperor Sword Court cultivation. He focused on nurturing Xiao Jinghong, Zhou Xiaoxian, Zhao Zongjian, Lin Changge, Ning Zifeng, Meng Tianlang, and Chen Bantian. These 7 people were the most talented in the way of the sword among his trusted subordinates. In the future, he would also become the representative of Emperor Sword Court. Zhou Xuanji gathered them together and used his divine sense to teach them different sword techniques. In the future, you will be called Emperor Sword Court 7 Swords. How about it? Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile. Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Zongjian agreed, of course. Zhou Xiaoxian said with dissatisfaction, "What an ugly name. Wouldn't it be better to call it 7 Ultimate Emperor Swords? 7 Absolute Emperor Swords?" Zhou Xuanji blinked and thought of the 5 ultimate gods. This name is not bad. "Master, can you enlighten us so that we can enter the Kunlun Origin Court as soon as possible?" Chen Bantian said with a smile, rubbing his hands. The spiritual qi in the Lotus world had been growing rapidly. Their cultivation was at least at Heavenly Law True God, but they were still far from connecting Heaven Level 10. Zhou Xuanji glared at him and said, "The foundation is very important. Don't rush it." Lin Changge let out a sigh and said, "Why can your cultivation advance so quickly? Is there really no one to enlighten you?" Zhou Xuanji was already the faith of the entire Emperor Sword Court. Even his trusted subordinates respected him. In their eyes, Zhou Xuanji had been fighting and surpassing his limits. But logically speaking, his cultivation should not be so fast. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "It's all due to serendipity. Even if someone enlightens you, you will not be able to catch up to me." Everyone was not discouraged. Instead, they looked at him with admiration. Zhou Xiaoxian curled her lip and said, "I don't want to learn Heavenly Sword Descent. I want to learn that move to multiply sword souls." Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "Everyone can learn sword souls, but it's best to practice a trump card divine ability. It's fine if you don't use it, but once you use it, you will definitely kill." Everyone couldn't help but nod. They felt that this was reasonable. After staying in the Lotus world for 5 years, Zhou Xuanji continued to cultivate in the Dao Tower. With his current cultivation level, even if he had 12-star aptitude, it would take a long time for him to break through again. During this time, Xian Mao did not take on any missions. They were indeed lacking merit points to become Void Boundary War gods, but they were not in a hurry. They were also looking forward to the superstar competition. Time passed year by year. In the blink of an eye, Zhou Xuanji had reached the age of 567. And this year, the superstar competition was about to begin. He walked out of the Dao Tower and first returned to the Longbo Divine Ranges Clan to inform them. Then, he went to the Superstar Competition Tower in the Origin City alone and teleported to the Superstar Realm, waiting for the Superstar Competition to begin. The world was dark and thunderclouds were billowing. The Superstar Sacred Steel stood on the ground like a mountain. It was so high and cold. More and more geniuses walked out of the teleportation array. Zhou Xuanji looked up and found that his ranking had fallen to around 700. He couldn't help but sigh. How many freaks are there in the Kunlun Origin Court? At this time, a screen of light appeared in front of him. It also appeared in front of the other geniuses. It listed the events of the Superstar competition. They could sign up at will. Each genius could sign up for at most 3 events. Zhou Xuanji rubbed his chin in thought. He definitely had no chance of winning in terms of strength, speed, or aesthetics. These events were all about strength. His eyes locked on one event. Learn. This event would take out thousands of powerful divine abilities for the geniuses to learn in full view of the public to see who was faster. Different levels of divine abilities would also have different results. In theory, the more difficult the divine ability was, the final result would be divided by a certain multiple. This was a must. In the Kunlun Origin Court, Sword Dao divine abilities were still very popular. This was the event he had the most advantage in. Next was the Dao debate. The rules of this event were very simple. Either convince the other party, or make the other party flustered or speechless. To put it bluntly, it was a competition of verbal skills. As for the third event, Great Dao Aptitude. This event mainly tested the genius's Great Dao ability. It would limit the level of the Great Dao so that all participants would have the same level of Great Dao. Then, they would compete with each other. This event was extremely popular because Great Dao talent was related to the upper limit of the owner's achievements. Even in the Kunlun Origin Court, one couldn't become stronger all the time. Every creature would have their own bottleneck. Chapter 683. Study. Dao Debate. Great Dao Aptitude. Zhou Xuanji submitted the registration application, and the light screen in front of him disappeared. The other geniuses also registered successfully. Most of them had excitement written all over their faces. But no matter how excited they were, no one shouted. All of them were very calm. Zhou Xuanji looked around. Except for the high-profile Chu Machin, he didn't know any of the other geniuses. Among those present, his cultivation was the lowest. He sat in the air and began to cultivate, waiting. One after another, geniuses walked out of their respective teleportation arrays. The number of people was still increasing. They registered one after another and then sat on the ground or hovered in the air, waiting. 5 days later, a vast pressure descended. All the teleportation arrays were closed. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and saw the thunderclouds forming a huge vortex. A figure wrapped in lightning descended. He was hundreds of meters tall, wearing a dragon head Qilin scale armor. His black cloak fluttered wildly in the wind, and he held 2 giant hammers in his hands. His face was pitch black. Only a pair of eyes shining with purple light could be seen, looking down at the ground. I am Fierce Thunder Sovereign. There are 2,936 participants in this year's Superstar competition. The Superstar competition's venue is above my head. As in the past, we will compete in each event in turn. The spectator competition will be the first, and the competition of strength will be the last. It will take a total of several years. I hope everyone is ready. Next is the preparation time for the Superstar competition. All origin cities and divine ranges are connecting their spells. Fierce Thunder Sovereign began introducing the order of the events. The 3 events that Zhou Xuanji registered belonged to the latter half. Among them, Great Dao Aptitude ranked second from the bottom. One could see its importance. The top 3 in each event would be rewarded with merit points, cultivation treasures, and so on. The rewards for the competition of strength were the most generous. Zhou Xuanji could only register for the competition of strength in the next superstar competition. Among the geniuses present, half of them had reached the Tao ancestor realm. This showed how powerful they were. After Fierce Thunder's sovereign finished his introduction, he disappeared. The vortex in the sea of clouds had yet to subside. The geniuses began to talk in groups of 2s and 3s. Through their conversation, Zhou Xuanji finally learned about the cultivation above the Tao ancestor realm. 9 vast heavens. This made him inexplicably think of the vast heavens in the legendary swords. Is there any connection between the two? Other than that, he also had to know that the ancestral realm was divided into 36 flowers. Every additional flower would cause a qualitative change in one's Tao power. Based on this deduction, how big was the gap between him and those prodigies who had reached the 9 vast heavens realm? Zhou Xuanji's imagination ran wild, but he was not discouraged. He was still young. Sooner or later, he would reach the Tao ancestor realm and surpass the 9 vast heavens realm. While they were waiting, the outside world was in an uproar. In the giant city of the Yu family, 9 stone tablets were erected in the central square, bursting with a strong light, condensing into a light screen in the sky, projecting the situation around the superstar sacred tablet. All the creatures in the city looked up. Did you see Zhou Xuanji? Why is it being screened in advance this time? Because our longbow divine range also has geniuses screaming. We don't have to wait for the superstar competition to officially begin. These geniuses all look really strong. Look! Our Zhou Xuanji is calm and not afraid at all. Sounds of discussion rose from every street, all of them extremely excited. Even though Zhou Xuanji looked very small, the creatures could still see him with their eyesight. Xian Xianghua, the old beggar, Qiu Hu, and the others could see him too. They were sitting in the courtyard, eating spirit fruits while waiting. Yu Zhongxiu was also by their side. She said with a soft smile, as long as he can show his brilliance, he doesn't have to be ranked. This is a good opportunity to become famous. This was the superstar competition. Only God knew how many creatures were watching. As long as Zhou Xuanji performed well, the reputation of the longbow divine range would soar, attracting countless creatures to join. This kid will definitely be in the limelight. The old beggar shook his wine glass and said with a smile. The others nodded in agreement. Zhou Xuanji's cultivation might be low, but they believed that Zhou Xuanji would definitely amaze everyone. This kind of situation and the gap in strength between the enemy and himself were the basic rules for Zhou Xuanji. Xian Xianghua propped her chin up and said with a smile, I wonder which 3 events he signed up for. The old beggar curled his lip and said, what's it called again? Tao debate, right? He must be one of them. This guy just likes to talk big. Everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter. At the same time, the various origin cities and divine ranges were also discussing the superstar competition. Although the nearby origin cities and divine ranges were paying attention to Zhou Xuanji, compared to the entire Kunlun origin court and the superstar competition, Zhou Xuanji's fame was still at the bottom. Time continued to pass. Half a month later, the superstar competition that countless creatures in the Kunlun origin court were paying attention to had officially begun. The first event was the spectator competition. Fierce Thunder's sovereign appeared. The spectator competition is about to begin. Fierce Thunder's sovereign waved his right hand, and hundreds of geniuses flew up. The ID marks on their bodies lit up, and they were quickly sucked into the cloud sea vortex. A screen of light appeared on the superstar sacred steel, showing a huge square stone platform. It was tens of thousands of meters long and wide, surrounded by a dazzling starry sky. Soldiers in golden armor stood at the edge of the stone platform. The sacred platform. Hundreds of geniuses landed on the sacred platform. The atmosphere was silent, but the outside world was already boiling. All the divine ranges and origin cities burst into a deafening uproar, cheering for their favorite geniuses. Even if the other party couldn't hear them, they had to vent their emotions. Zhou Xuanji clearly felt that the atmosphere around him had changed, especially those geniuses who were ranked higher than him. All of them had a serious look on their faces as they sat upright. No one dared to come within 100 meters of one of them. He was wearing a silver-beaded robe, sitting on a lotus seat. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. He had a handsome face and a phoenix-shaped silver crown on his head. He looked indifferent. He sat there like the brightest star in the night sky. Even if one didn't understand, he could still attract the attention of many people. He was Ingzhuge. 17-star aptitude. Legend had it that he was once an ancient god of the Kunlun origin court. For some unknown reason, he reincarnated. This body was a Dao body that he had cultivated for a long time. In less than 10,000 years after his reincarnation, he had reached the 9 vast heavens, which was unprecedented. Zhou Xuanji also paid attention to him. After all, this person was ranked first on the superstar sacred steel. Ingzhuge stared at the screen, watching the spectator competition. This seat is the superstar divine official. Now, this is the spectator competition on the main island of all beings. Next, this seat will read the names in turn. Each of you will show your most magnificent divine ability. After the first round, this seat will judge the top 100 based on the number of shouts from the Kunlun origin court. A sun-like ball of light appeared outside the sacred platform. An excited and magnetic voice came from it. The superstar divine official had existed for a long time. He couldn't be bribed. If he was found out, he would be obliterated by the sovereign. This was how the previous superstar divine official died. Chapter 684. The superstar divine official's cultivation was extremely high. His divine will could cover the entire Kunlun origin court. He could judge the sound and determine the winner of the spectator competition. Not only that, although the superstar divine official was very intimidating, his tone was extremely emotional. It made the sacred arena not feel awkward and excited all living beings. His voice passed through countless screens and resounded throughout the Kunlun origin court. Soon, the spectator competition began. The geniuses made their moves one after another. All kinds of gorgeous and shocking divine abilities were displayed. They could name the scene they wanted, and the superstar divine official could create it. Different environments could create different effects. For example, a man slashed open the universe with his sword. For example, thousands of stars turned into golden lotuses and exploded at the same time. It was shocking. Some geniuses used their palms as blades, releasing billions of blade lights, piecing together the dark universe into a bright world. All kinds of exaggerated divine abilities made the emotions of all living beings in the Kunlun origin court fluctuate one after another. Most of the living beings exclaimed in satisfaction. Zhou Xuanji also felt that it was pretty good. Many of his divine abilities were very enjoyable to watch, but he didn't participate. The main reason was that the spectator competition was too early. Although it was lively at the beginning, who would remember it after the superstar competition was over? This was one of the reasons why Zhou Xuanji chose the midterm competition. After 3 days, the spectator competition finally ended. The first place got more than 500 million merit points and many treasures, which made everyone envious. Then came the second competition. Zhou Xuanji stopped watching and began to meditate. Among all the geniuses, he was the only one cultivating. Because for them, cultivating now was equivalent to making a last-minute effort. Most importantly, it was useless. The surrounding geniuses thought that he was pretending to be aloof and disdained him. Time passed day by day. The various gambling dens in the Kunlun origin court were in full swing. After all, the superstar competition was a carnival for the entire Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji's first competition was the Dao debate. He was ranked 23rd. Most of the previous competitions didn't have any substantial competition until the artifact competition. This competition was definitely a rich man's game. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and saw the artifact being smashed. He felt a little distressed. It was worth mentioning that Ingzhuge and Chu Mochen didn't appear. The top 10 geniuses didn't move. Half a year later, the Tao debate began, and a genius ranked 8th soared into the sky. His name was Wuya, and he had 16 stars aptitude. Zhou Xuanji sensed an unstoppable force enveloping him and bringing him flying toward the cloud sea vortex. He immediately took out the World Fool's sword and wore it at his waist. He raised his eyes and looked over, and he noticed that there were only 127 geniuses participating in the Tao discussion. There was another way to describe the Tao discussion, and it was a competition of words. One couldn't utilize Tao energy, and it was very easy to damage one's image. They passed through the whirlpool and landed on the sacred arena. The Longbo divine range, the nearby divine ranges, and the origin cities were all stirred up. They had finally waited for Zhou Xuanji. The superstar divine official introduced them one by one, and after hearing that there were 16-star geniuses participating in the Tao debate, Yun Zhongxiu and the others all felt worried for Zhou Xuanji. If Zhou Xuanji encountered a 16-star genius in the first round, wouldn't that be too tragic? Now, we'll start picking our opponents. 3 of them will be discussing the Tao together. 1 sentence at a time, no interruptions allowed. Only one victor will be decided. The superstar divine official said. He waved his right hand, and the 127 balls of light flew toward the sacred arena. The geniuses tried to snatch them, but Zhou Xuanji was not in a hurry. He absorbed the remaining ball of light into his hand. When all the geniuses obtained the balls of light, they were pulled toward their opponents. What a coincidence! Zhou Xuanji's opponent was the 16-star genius, Wuya. Wuya looked like a scholar. He had a smile on his face and looked very handsome. The two sat opposite each other, and so did the other geniuses. They were hundreds of meters away from each other and did not affect each other. What do you want to discuss? Wuya stared at Zhou Xuanji and asked with a smile. For some reason, he did not like Zhou Xuanji. He always felt that Zhou Xuanji was a despicable person, but he still maintained the demeanor of a powerful cultivator. Zhou Xuanji did not know if the World Fool's sword would work on Wuya. The World Fool's sword had the ability to lower one's intellect, and it did not consume any magic energy, so it was not against the rules. Where did the sovereign come from? Zhou Xuanji asked calmly. Born from the Kunlun origin court, of course. Where did the Kunlun origin court come from? Created by the original sovereign? Then how did the original sovereign come into being? The existence of Daos came into being at the right time. It was the same for the sovereign. Wuya readily accepted their advice and easily answered all their doubts. Zhou Xuanji raised his brows slightly. It seemed that he had underestimated his opponent. He wanted to ask a question like the chicken or the egg, which came first. But this guy answered the question forcefully, which made it impossible for him to answer. I have to get serious. Zhou Xuanji asked with squinted eyes, in a void boundary without any spirit, if a watchtower collapses, will there be any sound? Of course there will be sound, Wuya said with disdain in his eyes. Isn't this common sense? How do you know? Of course there is. This is something that everyone knows. But no one was there. After the Tao discussion, I will demonstrate it to you. But you are still wrong. How can you say something that you did not see with your own eyes? Wuya was frustrated by the questions. He always felt that Zhou Xuanji was being unreasonable. But he could not lose his temper. If he lost his temper during the Tao discussion, he would lose. Before Wuya could reply, Zhou Xuanji continued to ask, do you think that some things are true and will not change no matter what? Wuya replied, there are indeed some things that should be like that, but it's not absolute. Your name is Wuya. This is true, right? Of course. If the sovereign says that you are not Wuya and everyone believes in the sovereign, will you still be Wuya? Just my name? Is there a difference? Everyone thinks that you are someone else. Do you think that you are still yourself? Wuya frowned at the question. He felt that Zhou Xuanji was pressuring him with the sovereign. The powerful reigns supreme. Such a metaphor was illogical. He immediately took the initiative and asked, "If it were you, will you still be yourself?" Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Of course. My existence lies in my heart. If my heart changes, I will no longer be who I was before. If my heart does not change, I will still be me." Wuya was infuriated when he heard this. Is there something wrong with this brat's brain? Is there a difference between this logic and what he said before? Then, you are so sure that there will be no sound when the watchtower collapses. That means no sound is your answer? Wuya asked with squinted eyes. Zhou Xuanji said with a faint smile, "That's me, not you." Wuya cursed in his heart immediately, and his murderous intent grew. He said coldly, "Then, you are not me. How can you say that my answer is wrong?" Zhou Xuanji replied unhurriedly, "Because I asked the question. Wuya, I have countless legendary swords. I have countless legendary swords." Chapter 685. Wuya was so infuriated by Zhou Xuanji's shameless words that he almost exploded. Fortunately, he suppressed his emotions and immediately said, "What you said, doesn't that mean that everything you said is reasonable and everything I said is wrong? What's the point of having a Tao debate like this? Don't you care about your reputation now that you've become a Tao-treading saint?" His face was expressionless, but his heart was trying hard to calm down. What was going on? Why would he be angered by such a shameless person? He could not help but glance at the World Fool's sword at Zhou Xuanji's waist. He did not sense any ripples of Tao energy. If it wasn't the effect of the magic treasure, could it be that there was something wrong with his state of mind? That's right. Ever since he prepared to participate in the superstar examination, the divine range he was in had given him a lot of pressure. If you're dissatisfied, then you can raise a question. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Seeing the ripples in Wuya's eyes, he knew that the World Fool's sword was working. That was awesome. Could a mere amethyst divine sword affect an existence that surpassed the Tao ancestor level? Perhaps it was because Wuya had not noticed the use of the World Fool's sword. The World Fool's sword did not consume any magic power, and its attack power was very weak. It only had the ability to lower one's intelligence. Otherwise, its level would have been even higher. Zhou Xuanji decided in his heart to focus on nurturing the World Fool's sword in the future and find a way to help it level up. Fine, let me ask you, how many great Taos are there? Wuya asked. His heart was filled with hatred. See if I don't kill you. As many as you think you have. I'm asking you how many you think there are. There are 3,000 great Taos, and they are endless and without end. Fellow Taoist, to ask this question, have you ever left your God meridian? Wrong. The number of great Taos is fixed. Otherwise, why would there be great Taos that are constantly being destroyed? Wuya was almost angered to death by Zhou Xuanji. This brat dared to mock him for being ignorant. Endure. He had to endure it. This was only the first round. He couldn't lose. The two of them continued to engage in a verbal battle. Since Wuya was the most famous, the majority of the living beings focused their attention on them. As long as he used his spiritual force to touch the light screens of the various realms, he would be able to pay attention to any of the geniuses on the sacred arena. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji and Wuya were equally matched, countless creatures were in an uproar. Who is this guy? How shameless. This brat is really lucky to be able to live until today. Why is Wuya so agitated? You're so easily angered? Why don't you try? Do you think you can remain calm after being provoked by an ant? Not bad. If it were you or me, would we dare to face a 16-star prodigy like this? All the divine ranges and origin cities were discussing Zhou Xuanji and Wuya. The Longbow divine range was seething with excitement. The old beggar sighed, "This kid really has my style." Qiu, whose face was filled with admiration. Si Mengyan, Xing Tiandao, Gu Tianxia, and Su Qing were speechless. Yu Zhongxiu and Xian Xianghua looked at Zhou Xuanji, their eyes sparkling. Zhou Xuanji's calmness toward Wuya was too charming. At the same time, the debate in the sacred arena had reached its climax. Soon, some geniuses were so angry that they drew their swords and were sent back to the superstar sacred steel by the superstar divine official. Wuya was still tolerating Zhou Xuanji. He felt that he was about to lose control. The guy in front of him was really asking for a beating. Fellow Daoist, do you think the superstar competition is fair? Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile. The more he laughed, the stronger Wuya's killing intent became. Wuya narrowed his eyes and said, fair, but also unfair. The same trick again. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, fellow Daoist, you are not sincere and speak ambiguously. What are you afraid of as a genius who dares to take responsibility for his actions? In my opinion, it's fairness. I can debate with a genius like you, and it's still the Tao of cultivation. If this isn't fairness, then what is? The sovereign is benevolent. If I lose to you, it's not shameful. If I win, it will be glorious. If you win against me, it's only natural, and you will be ridiculed for bullying the weak. If you lose to me, can you still be considered a human? Damn! Wuya almost stood up and gave Zhou Xuanji a kick. This kid is definitely provoking me. His eyes were slightly bloodshot. He smiled awkwardly and said, my goal is to be first. If I win against you, in the end, no one will remember me. If you don't even understand this, why did you come to the Tao debate? Fundamentally speaking, the superstar competition isn't fair. Take the sparring session for example. My cultivation, path, and realm are all higher than yours. You can't have a fair sparring session with me. You can only be clever and argue shamelessly. Even so, you still have to lose. Do you still think it's fair? An eye for an eye. Since you want to mock me, don't blame me for being rude. Zhou Xuanji was not flustered at all. No, no. You are the one who lost, so to me, it's still very fair, he said. Wuya chuckled and asked, why can you win? Zhou Xuanji replied, it's the same as my initial answer. My heart thinks that I will win, so I must win. I think that you will lose, so you will surely lose. You know what's the worst? It's not a nobody like me, but it's the geniuses below the top genius like you. You will always be the dim stars beside the bright moon, unimportant. Killing people's hearts. Wuya was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Why does it sound like I am inferior to the geniuses at the bottom? His hands and his sleeves began to tremble. Zhou Xuanji continued, I have been observing. Geniuses like Ing Zhuge and Chu Machin did not even look at you in the eye, just like how you did not look at me in the eye. In this case, isn't our treatment fair? Wuya thought of Ing Zhuge and Chu Machin's arrogant faces inexplicably. Flames of jealousy welled up in him. He felt that Zhou Xuanji was sent by those two geniuses to humiliate him. He immediately took out a dagger and was prepared to end Zhou Xuanji's life. Next, he disappeared into thin air. The superstar divine official teleported him away. Wah! Everyone was in an uproar. A 16-star genius was eliminated in the first round? Wuya returned to the superstar sacred steel and was stunned. Strange gazes were directed at him from all directions. He was so ashamed that he wanted to kill himself on the spot. Damn it. Why couldn't I hold back? Why did this happen? After getting out of the World Fool Sword's control, Wuya hugged his head and was on the verge of collapse. Recalling what happened just now, he felt as though he was bewitched. Chu Machin smiled disdainfully and said, he has just stepped into the Tao-treading saint stage. So embarrassing. He spoke loudly on purpose to provoke Wuya. Wuya was furious, but he dared not to speak. On the sacred platform, Zhou Xuanji sensed a divine will sweeping past him. To be precise, it was sweeping toward the World Fool Sword. It must be the superstar divine official checking if he was cheating. However, the superstar divine official did not notice anything unusual about the World Fool Sword. Zhou Xuanji could not help but sigh in amazement. The supreme legendary sword system was really awesome to be able to create a treasure like the World Fool Sword. He closed his eyes and began cultivating. His calm demeanor shocked the outside world even more. A Tao-treading saint defeated a 9 vast heavens cultivator in the Tao debate. A 12-star defeated a 16-star with his mouth. Zhou Xuanji became famous instantly. Each divine range began sending people to gather information about Zhou Xuanji. Many living beings who bet on Wuya lost money. Countless living beings were so furious that they vomited blood. Chapter 686. Amazing. Qiu Hu exclaimed. If he was in front of Wuya, would he be so eloquent? The others were also sighing in amazement. Although they appeared to be very confident in Zhou Xuanji, his opponent was a 16-star genius. They were all worried for Zhou Xuanji. He did not expect Zhou Xuanji to really pull off an upset. Xian Xianghua smiled proudly and said, "Looks like my little husband is going to be the champion." Even the strongest opponent had been eliminated by him, so there was naturally hope for first place. Everyone's spirits rose, and they couldn't help but look forward to it. They could hear the entire Yu family's huge city boiling with excitement. All creatures were shouting Zhou Xuanji's name. At the edge of a vast plaza, there were many pavilions surrounding it. Countless creatures were cheering and shouting from above. Empress Red Dragon stood in front of the railing and stared at the screen in shock. That brat, this Empress Red Dragon, had almost forgotten about Zhou Xuanji. She did not expect to see him at the superstar competition. How long had it been? This kid had actually become a Tao-treading venerable. The most terrifying thing was that he had eliminated Wuya, whom she looked up to, during the Tao debate. She couldn't believe her eyes and ears. Was Zhou Xuanji that powerful? At the same time, old ancestor Inshin was almost scared to death in a pavilion in an origin city of the Kunlun origin court. It's over, old ancestor Inshin was about to cry. The more powerful Zhou Xuanji was, the closer he was to death. He fed Zhou Xuanji poison to test his medicine and even sold it to the Longbo Divine Ranges Yu clan. The two of them were sworn enemies. Previously, when he found out that Zhou Xuanji was a 12-star genius, he was so scared that he fled far away from the Longbo Divine Range. He did not expect that Zhou Xuanji would participate in the superstar competition, which made him feel like he was haunting him. Now that he saw Zhou Xuanji defeating Wuya, he felt that the world had turned dark. If Zhou Xuanji did not die, he would be in big trouble in the future. The other side. Xian Mao's Tao ancestors were also cheering for Zhou Xuanji. However, this was only the first round of the Tao discussion, and the true victor hadn't been decided. After the first round of the competition ended, the superstar divine officials split up again, and the second round of the test continued. Zhou Xuanji did not disappoint the people of the Longbo Divine Range. His opponents were all hopping mad at him and wanted to attack him. He defeated 6 prodigies in a row. Looks like the fool's sword doesn't just lower one's intellect. It can easily make one lose their rationality. Zhou Xuanji inwardly sighed in amazement. He was the Sword Emperor, and it was only natural for him to use his sword to defeat his enemies. Up until now, he'd become one of the hot favorites to win the Tao discussion. He had also caused the other geniuses on the sacred arena to feel immense pressure. It was too strange. This fellow could always infuriate his opponents. Near the superstar sacred stele, over 2,000 geniuses were discussing Zhou Xuanji's name. They were very curious about where Zhou Xuanji had come from. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji won again and again, Wuya felt much better. The more powerful Zhou Xuanji was, the less embarrassing his failure would be. In the blink of an eye, the finals of the Tao discussion had arrived. Zhou Xuanji's opponent was a 15-star genius, Gu Hanyue. She wore a blue and white robe, and her skin was as white as snow. She had a pretty face, and her black hair was coiled into a willow leaf bun. Her eyes were lively as she sized Zhou Xuanji up. They were the only ones left in the sacred arena. Fellow Taoist Zhou Xuanji, what do you want to discuss? Gu Hanyue asked with a smile, looking very gentle. Facing such a beauty, Zhou Xuanji wouldn't be merciful with his words. He directly asked, in the Kunlun origin court, how much power do women have? Even in the Kunlun origin court, the number of female cultivators was still less than that of male cultivators. The higher the cultivation, the more vicious the female cultivator. Only by being ruthless could they reach the top. Gu Hanyue replied with a smile, no matter how much, I want to have a share. Zhou Xuanji said, the question is not how much you want, but do you think the yin and yang ratio is reasonable? Gu Hanyue replied, any ratio is reasonable. Everything has its own destiny. What if I say that the power of the world should be divided equally between yin and yang? What do you think? Oh. Could it be that you want to become a female cultivator? Of course not. I just feel that it would be better if there were more proud daughters of heaven like Fairy. Fairy, don't you wish for that? Or do you feel that the fewer proud daughters of heaven, the better? That way, you would be able to enjoy more popularity? How do you know how popular I am? Looking at your eyebrows, you look delicate and innocent with a smile on your face. Obviously, you have always been pampered. No matter how bright your smile is, I can see the disdain in your eyes. It's just like how you treat your admirers. You are the moon surrounded by the stars. How can there be more moons than stars in the prosperous starry sky? Gu Hanyue still maintained her smile while cursing in her heart. This kid is really mean. If these words were to spread, it would make her look very hypocritical. Not to be outdone, she began to fight back. The conversation between the two was getting faster and faster. Their words were also getting sharper and sharper. Countless living beings in the outside world were holding their breath. Gu Hanyue was very famous. Her 15-star aptitude was enough to prove everything. Moreover, she was a female cultivator. Zhou Xuanji used female cultivators as a starting point to discuss. How sinister. Many male cultivators despised him, but many female cultivators were on Zhou Xuanji's side. The reason was very simple. Zhou Xuanji said that the power of the world should be divided equally between men and women. He hoped that there would be more and more geniuses. At the same time, it was hard for women to find other women pleasing to the eye. Gu Hanyue quickly changed the topic and asked, if that's the case, then do you think that I can come this far and fight with you because others let me win? Or do they have other plans, throwing away their dignity as a cultivator? This sentence was digging a hole. If Zhou Xuanji said yes, those geniuses would definitely hate him. Among them, Wuya is the most typical example. With his strength and aptitude, he doesn't need this Tao debate to prove himself. On the contrary, if he wins, it will be boring. His modesty shows great wisdom. What about you? You are a 15-star genius who enjoys the love of countless people. Why are you competing with us, a low-ranked divine range creature? Zhou Xuanji said seriously, giving Wuya and the other geniuses a way out of this embarrassing situation. Wuya looked at him again and suddenly felt that he was very pleasing to the eye. This kid knows how to behave. Shameless. Gu Hanyue cursed in her heart. This kid really knows how to talk nonsense. She tried her best to calm her mind and suppress the nameless evil fire in her heart. At the same time, she recited the scripture in her heart to calm herself down. She squinted her eyes and said with a smile, you are a man, yet you want me to let you win. Don't you feel ashamed? This question is meaningless. Let's change the topic. Zhou Xuanji immediately interrupted and said, okay, let me ask you, how do you differentiate between good and evil? Gu Hanyue replied, I am good, you are evil. Those who attack others with their tongues are like you. Their schemes are as deep as the sea. I don't know how many creatures you have schemed to kill. It must be evil. I have great magical powers and have saved countless creatures in the universe. Naturally, I am good. Zhou Xuanji raised the corner of his mouth and said, as you said, killing is evil and saving is good. The sovereign is high and mighty. He created everything for good. But countless creatures died under the sovereign's rules. Is this evil? Chapter 687. Sovereign. All living beings were frightened. This kid is really audacious. He dares to talk about the sovereign in such a grand event? Is he tired of living? The creatures of the Longbow divine range were also frightened. They didn't want to be implicated. At this moment, God knows how many creatures were cursing Zhou Xuanji for courting death. Gu Hanyue was also frightened. Is this kid crazy? She said in a deep voice, naturally, it can't be considered evil. Everything has its own rules. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. If we don't sacrifice some, how can there be hope for future generations to survive? Wrong. Zhou Xuanji shouted in a low voice, sonorous and forceful. He righteously said, this is naturally evil. However, the evil of the Supreme Being is not purely good and evil. His evil is beyond what we mortals can imagine. Good and evil are all done by him. He created us for the sake of good, but in order to create the younger generation, he monopolized the evil and eliminated the former. This kind of breadth of mind is the reason why he became the Supreme Being. The strong can bear everything, and the sovereign bears everything in the Kunlun origin court. No matter what all living beings think, his evil is glorious and a great fortune. We can't deny his evil because this is denying his great fortune. There is good and evil. This is reality. How can there be absolute good and absolute evil in the world? The sovereign is like this, we are like this, and the Kunlun origin court is also like this. The sovereign bears the greatest pressure so that we can live with peace of mind. Although it is evil, it is also the greatest good. Gu Hanyue was stunned by what he said. After he finished speaking, she immediately reacted. This kid was too good at flattering, wasn't he? The entire Kunlun origin court fell into dead silence. All living beings felt that what he said made sense. They couldn't help but respect the sovereign. But when they came back to their senses and thought about it, something was wrong. This kid is flattering the sovereign. Isn't he too shameless? Zhou Xuanji stared at Gu Hanyue and said word by word, you don't dare to point out the sovereign's evil. It can be seen that you are afraid of the sovereign. Why are you afraid? Could it be that in your heart, the sovereign's evil will harm you? Are you worthy of the boundless Kunlun's fortune? If there is no sovereign, how can there be a divine range? How can there be an environment where you can enjoy all the love? Are you worthy of the sovereign, worthy of your divine range? Every word of his was like a knife, constantly stabbing Gu Hanyue's heart. Gu Hanyue's Dao heart instantly became unstable, giving the world fool sword an opportunity to strike. She immediately lost her mind. She felt that Zhou Xuanji was slandering her and wanted to kill her. Thinking that the entire divine range might die because of her, she got up in anger and slammed her palm toward Zhou Xuanji. You're talking nonsense. His intentions are unforgivable. Then she disappeared. The Dao debate ended, and Zhou Xuanji had the last laugh. Boom! The Kunlun origin court was shaken. This result was too sudden. As Zhou Xuanji's tone changed, he instantly dug a pit for Gu Hanyue, forcing her to lose her composure and lose her composure. Needless to say, it was too exciting. The winner of this Dao debate is Longbow Divine Range's 12-star genius, Zhou Xuanji. The superstar divine official shouted loudly. His tone was impassioned and filled with the power to stir up emotions. The Longbow Divine Range almost exploded. Even the walls of the Great Dao could not block out the noise. The Kunlun universe reverberated with an earth-shaking commotion. Zhou Xuanji had shaken the entire Kunlun origin court. Even on the sacred platform, he could feel the Great Dao trembling. He heaved a long sigh of relief. I really won. Congratulations to Zhou Xuanji for winning 200 million merit points and the opportunity to enter the Great Dao tempering pool for 7 days. The superstar divine official shouted loudly. Next, he landed in front of Zhou Xuanji and motioned for him to take out his ID card. Next, he transferred 200 million merit points to Zhou Xuanji and said, after the superstar competition, you can go to the Great Dao tempering pool at any time. You can enter with your ID card. He looked at Zhou Xuanji with admiration in his eyes. He won the superstar competition with the cultivation of an early-stage Dao-treading saint. This guy is incredible. Zhou Xuanji bowed slightly before being sent out by the superstar divine official. Next was the competition of the next event. After returning to the vicinity of the superstar sacred steel, Zhou Xuanji immediately attracted the attention of all the geniuses. Even Ning Zhuge and Chu Machen were looking at him. He was calm and composed as he sat in meditation in the air, looking at the light screen calmly. Gu Hanyue walked over, biting her lip. Her eyes were filled with resentment as she said, "Zhou Xuanji, we are acquainted. As for whether we are enemies or friends, it depends on how fast you grow." Zhou Xuanji almost offended the sovereign. How could she act as if nothing had happened? "I will try my best to become stronger," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. He didn't have any malice toward Gu Hanyue. After all, how could he feel any sense of accomplishment when a man bickered with a woman? Gu Hanyue gave him a deep look before turning around and leaving. As the competition of another event began, the attention of the geniuses began to shift. Although Zhou Xuanji had won, he wasn't a strong cultivator in their eyes. In any case, Zhou Xuanji's name had already spread throughout the Kunlun origin court. Old ancestor Longbo was very happy. He ordered the distribution of spiritual wine for the whole sect to celebrate. Zhou Xuanji's victory was worth bragging about for hundreds of millions of years. Just as Zhou Xuanji was cultivating, a man flew to his side. He opened his eyes and a strange look appeared on his face. Isn't this guy Ji Huanglin? Back in the Heaven Fiend realm, it was Ji Huanglin who brought him to the Heaven Fiend Star Island and gave him the Heavenly Law Jade. He then integrated the power of Heavenly Law into the Thunderclap sword, upgrading it. At that time, Ji Huanglin dared to go against Buddha Yangling. He was extremely mysterious. Zhou Xuanji didn't expect him to be from the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji looked back at the superstar sacred steel. Sure enough, he saw Ji Huanglin's name. 16-star aptitude. When he first came here, he didn't see Ji Huanglin's name. After that, he didn't observe it carefully. He just roughly counted it. If Ji Huanglin hadn't appeared in front of him, he would have forgotten the name Ji Huanglin. He also didn't notice Ji Huanglin's appearance before. Ji Huanglin was wearing a silver-white robe, looking extremely noble. He looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated look in his eyes and said, "It seems that the Heavenly Law Jade didn't choose you by chance." Zhou Xuanji still felt a little guilty facing him. After all, he had stolen the Heavenly Law Jade and made Ji Huanglin busy for nothing. Zhou Xuanji sized Ji Huanglin up and found that Ji Huanglin's aura was even more unfathomable than before. He was taller, and his face was colder. As though he saw through Zhou Xuanji's doubts, Ji Huanglin said calmly, "The one in the Heaven Fiend realm was just a clone of mine. I communicated with you through my original will. If not for that, you might have been killed by my clone." Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Then should I thank you for not killing me?" Ji Huanglin snorted coldly, "Remember, you still owe me a favor. My Heavenly Law Jade was absorbed by you. I let you take advantage of me back then." On the Heaven Fiend Star Island, he helped Zhou Xuanji obtain countless natural treasures for his cultivation. "Yo, Brother Ji, are you familiar with this brat?" Chu Machen flew over suddenly and asked with a mocking smile. The two super geniuses approached drew Zhou Xuanji's attention again. Chapter 688. I'm not really familiar with him. I've met him in the lower realms before, and that brat even tricked me. Ji Huanglin looked back at Chu Machen and shook his head with a smile. His tone was thought-provoking. Chu Machen mocked, "Yo, you even sent your clone to the lower realm. You're still thinking about that illusory dream of being the Heavenly Law Lord?" Heavenly Law Lord? Zhou Xuanji immediately understood Ji Huanglin's intention. No wonder this guy wanted the Heavenly Law Jade. He wanted to control all the heavenly laws. But why would Ji Huanglin need the heavenly law with his cultivation? Brat, not bad. Continue to work hard. When you reach the Tao ancestor level, I will bring you along. Chu Machen looked down at Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji was not angry because he had the right to be so arrogant. Soon, Ji Huanglin and Chu Machen left. In their eyes, Zhou Xuanji was not a threat. He was not even qualified to speak to them on equal footing. Even so, Zhou Xuanji received many envious gazes. The superstar competition continued. The Kunlun Origin Court was still bustling. As the competitions passed, everyone forgot about the excitement brought by Zhou Xuanji. The Tao debate was not a real Tao debate. It was more for entertainment. So, the prize for the champion was obviously lower than the other competitions. Time continued to pass. In the blink of an eye, the learning competition was here. Zhou Xuanji was sent to the sacred platform by the hundreds of fierce lightning sovereign. Everyone present was a genius. Naturally, they were confident in their ability to learn. The learning competition tested not only one's talent in bloodline but also one's comprehension. A total of 489 geniuses stood on the platform. Even the third-ranked 16-star genius, Meng Shen, and the fourth-ranked 16-star genius, Chang Xingshao, were there. 16 out of the top 50 on the Superstar Sacred Steel participated. All of them were high-spirited and looking forward to the competition. The Superstar Divine Official waved his right hand. Orbs of light floated in the air and lined up in rows. The lower they went, the more orbs there were. The geniuses could tell what energy techniques were hidden in them with their divine sense. There are 9 divine energy techniques in total. First God is the lowest and 9th God is the highest. After learning it, demonstrate it once. Do not hurt other geniuses. Except for first God's divine ability, the time for other divine abilities will be shortened. Also, each participant can only choose one divine ability. The time starts now. The Superstar Divine Official did not waste any time and directly gave the order. Most of the prodigies began to attack, and this scene once again stirred up everyone's blood. Zhou Xuanji had won first place in one of the events after all, and he was a dark horse at that, so he attracted the attention of countless creatures. In terms of learning ability, this kid shouldn't be too bad. The old beggar stroked his long beard and smiled, but he did not reveal Zhou Xuanji's ranking. After all, the other geniuses had even more terrifying talent. Yun Zhongxiu nodded and said, he's already won the first place in one of the events. Even if he doesn't participate in the other events, it's enough. Speaking to there, she could not help but look at Zhou Xuanji again, as if she was looking at a legend. She bought Zhou Xuanji from the black market, but she did not expect Zhou Xuanji to have such achievements. It was simply too amazing. On the other hand, Xian Xianghua felt quite expectant. She remembered that Zhou Xuanji's talent in learning sword techniques was simply terrifying. Meanwhile, Zhou Xuanji locked onto the 9-god divine ability. There were a total of 12 9-god divine abilities, and only one of them was a sword Dao divine ability. Ultimate Chaos Dao. Upon mastery, one could use boundless sword chi to disrupt and even destroy the 3,000 great Daos. He probed it with his spiritual will and quickly obtained the cultivation method of the ultimate Chaos Dao. Fortunately, this divine ability had sword moves as well. Sword Dao divine abilities could not be separated from the sword after all, especially those ridiculously powerful divine abilities, which were mostly performed with sword moves. Of course, divine abilities like Sword Sect Immortal Ghost Weep and the Sword Fusion technique did not require sword moves. All one had to do was to understand their intricacies. Zhou Xuanji took out the World Fool sword and began practicing within a radius of 30 meters. This attracted the attention of the other geniuses. Is this brat stupid? Can divine abilities be cultivated like this? Ignore him. He's just playing to the gallery. Tisk tsk. A mere 12-star dares to choose a 9-god divine ability. This competition is not about whose divine ability is of a higher level, but who can learn the divine ability more efficiently. The faster one learns a divine ability, the better one can win. Hurry up. Meng Shen and Chang Shengshao are already meditating. The geniuses discussed among themselves, while Zhou Xuanji entered a state of forgetfulness. The living beings in the outside world also felt that Zhou Xuanji was playing to the gallery. This brat is really shameless. Zhou Xuanji practiced his sword moves while comprehending the qi circulation technique. Divine abilities were about understanding. After each divine ability was mastered, one could use it at will. But before that, one had to practice the technique over and over again to fully understand it. Zhou Xuanji's sword moved extremely quickly. He only spent the time of half an incense stick to practice the ultimate chaos Dao once. By the second time, his speed had already increased. 10 times. 50 times. 100 times. Zhou Xuanji's sword moved even faster. His sword qi filled the 30 meters radius, which was so powerful that the other geniuses could not help but look at him. Especially the geniuses who were closest to him. They felt frustrated and felt that something was missing. It was difficult for them to get into the zone. The World Fool's sword was working. At this moment, someone had already learned a divine ability. He performed it toward the void outside the sacred platform and stood out. The superstar divine official brought him to his side through the air. The geniuses who chose a divine ability fell into despair immediately. If they could not beat the others with divine abilities of the same level, they had no chance of winning. But for divine abilities of a higher level, they could make use of the time difference. Zhou Xuanji seemed to be stimulated too. His sword moved faster and faster. He moved back and forth in the 30 meters radius. Although he was fast, his movements were not messy. He was domineering and elegant. Gradually, those who mocked Zhou Xuanji began to see him differently. This brat is really going to master it. His sword technique is quite good. It seems like this brat is quite accomplished in the sword's way. You can learn a divine ability in the sword's way like this? This isn't a sword technique. TSK. Is he going to be a dark horse again? This is going to be interesting. All the divine ranges and origin cities began to discuss Zhou Xuanji. Compared to the other geniuses who were meditating, he looked so outstanding. Most importantly, everyone could clearly see that the speed at which he swung his sword was increasing. After 200 times, Zhou Xuanji's sword speed reached a new height. At first glance, there seemed to be countless afterimages, and no one could see him clearly. 250 times. 300 times. 350 times. While Zhou Xuanji was focused on training his sword, other geniuses learned low-grade divine abilities one after another. Meng Shen and Chang Xingshao entered a state of enlightenment and were not disturbed by the outside world. A great Dao vortex appeared around them, and their auras were sharp. A while later, Zhou Xuanji practiced the ultimate chaos Dao's basic sword moves for the 400th time. Boom! A violent great Dao gathered toward him. Along with his sword qi, the space around him rippled visibly. That brat, Ji Huanglin, looked up at the light screen and narrowed his eyes. A tinge of disbelief flashed across his eyes. Chapter 689. Ultimate Chaos Dao. Chaos Dao. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself, but his body did not stop. At this moment, he became one with the World Fool's sword. He was the sword, and the sword was him. He could sense the great Dao around him, and so could the World Fool's sword. His sword moved with extreme speed. Toward the end, he repeated it almost every second. The 458th time. The 459th time. The 460th time. Fast as the wind and powerful as a dragon. At this moment, countless people focused their attention on Zhou Xuanji. Especially the longbow divine range. No one dared to breathe too loudly. They could sense that Zhou Xuanji was about to succeed. They could sense his boldness even through the screen of light. The surrounding geniuses dodged in fear, fearing that they might be injured by him. At the same time, the sound of his sword was too loud, and the chaotic Great Tao was twisting around. The superstar divine official stared at Zhou Xuanji with an odd expression. In the Tao debate, it could be said that this brat was lucky and eloquent. But this was a competition of learning. It was a competition of true talent. A 12-star could overpower a 16-star. What a joke. The geniuses levitating in the air looked over with their eyes wide open. How can it be? He's going to succeed. That's a 9-god grade divine ability. How can he cultivate it like that? Stop bullsh** ting. Even Meng Shen and Chang Xingxiao have not succeeded. Who is this brat? The geniuses discussed among themselves in shock. They could not remain calm. The competition of learning was very important to them after all. It concerned their serendipity. It was fine if they lost to a 16-star genius, but if they lost to a 12-star genius, they did not dare to imagine how the divine range cultivators would criticize and mock them. The 489th time. The 490th time. The 491st time. The 500th time. Zhou Xuanji stopped abruptly and flew up. He levitated hundreds of meters in the air and placed his sword in front of him. He opened his eyes and held the sword in his right hand. With a twist of his wrist, he swung his sword toward the void outside the sacred arena. In an instant, countless sword chi crisscrossed in the void, causing the universe to collapse. All sorts of great Taos turned into colorful air currents that intertwined. A violent gale blew and shook the sacred platform. The scene was extremely shocking. The prodigies who were still in the midst of enlightenment were startled awake. Everyone opened their eyes and immediately saw Zhou Xuanji's figure. He placed his left hand behind his waist and raised his sword with his right hand, pointing it diagonally at the void. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and the demeanor of the Sword Emperor was as beautiful as a painting. The explosion in the void served as a foil to his calm demeanor. This sword strike was very relaxed. The universe seemed to be very fragile. At this moment, countless living beings were stunned by his figure. Such a handsome sword show. Meng Shen and Chang Xingxiao could not help but widen their eyes in shock. This is ultimate chaos Tao? They had an inexplicably surreal feeling. The ultimate chaos path was a top-notch sword Tao divine ability in the Kunlun origin court, and its creator was at the pinnacle of the sword Tao in the Kunlun origin court. The superstar divine official waved his right hand and pulled Zhou Xuanji to his side. Zhou Xuanji was expressionless. He spun the hilt with his right hand and sheathed the World Fool's sword into the scabbard at his waist. From the beginning to the end, he did not reveal an expression of ecstasy, not even a trace of a smile. It was as if learning the ultimate chaos Tao was not a difficult task for him. It was indeed not a difficult task. How long did he take? The superstar divine official's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He looked at Zhou Xuanji as though he was looking at a monster. The surrounding geniuses looked at him the same way. Zhou Xuanji ignored them but felt a little proud in his heart. Fortunately, he had a divine ability in the sword Tao, or else he would only be a minor character. But this was normal. Even in the Kunlun origin court, how many cultivators did not have a sword? The sacred platform was silent. All the geniuses looked at Zhou Xuanji, stunned. They calculated the time in their hearts, and their hearts sank. Why did it turn out like this? Meng Shen mumbled to himself with a dazed expression. To him, if he could not get first place, it was meaningless to learn a powerful divine ability. Chang Xingxiao, on the other hand, quickly entered his cultivation mode. Even if he could not get first place, he would fight for second place. The other geniuses came back to their senses and entered their cultivation mode one after another. The outside world was in an uproar. Zhou Xuanji staged another Dark Horse's counterattack. Although the Tao debate could not prove anything, who would dare to doubt him this time? Some living beings said that Zhou Xuanji might have learned it in advance, but they were immediately refuted by the surrounding living beings. How could a Tao-treading saint learn the ultimate chaos Tao? The divine abilities chosen in the superstar competition were all exclusive techniques. They had to guarantee that they would not be leaked after the competition. Too powerful. Too powerful. Too powerful. Xiao Hu slammed the table and stood up in excitement. Si Mengyan, who had always been calm, was also trembling in excitement. The old beggar burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. This is my disciple. Gu Tianxia and Su Qing also looked at the light screen in the sky in a daze. They could not come back to their senses for a long time. Xian Xianghua did not utter a word. Instead, she gave them a knowing look. They could already hear the cheers of the entire Longbow divine range. Zhou Xuanji. So powerful. Our Longbow divine range is going to rise. He's only a 12-star genius. I think he's at least 16-star. He surpassed 2 16-star geniuses in the competition of learning. That's unbelievable. Ha ha ha, we picked up a treasure. The Yu clan's contribution cannot go unnoticed. They were able to find such a genius from the black market. Emperor Red Dragon stared blankly at the light screen in the sky. Her ears were filled with deafening cheers. The creatures of this divine range only felt that it was a drama and was amazed. But her feelings were extremely complicated. If she had brought Zhou Xuanji back personally, wouldn't they be able to use such a genius? The more she thought about it, the more regretful she felt. It was as though she had lost her soul. Meanwhile, old ancestor Ainxin, who was far away in another divine range, fainted out of fear. While everyone was shocked by Zhou Xuanji again, he meditated behind the superstar divine official and cultivated quietly. The other geniuses could not help but admire him for his calmness. Although this kid's cultivation was low, his temperament and talent were really powerful. In time, he might become someone like Ying Zhuge. Time ticked by. After the superstar divine official confirmed the top 3, the competition ended. Unlike other competitions, it was very easy to distinguish the top 3 in this competition. The winner of this competition is Longbow Divine Range's 12-star genius, Zhou Xuanji. After the superstar divine official took back all the divine ability orbs, he shouted loudly. His voice resounded throughout the entire superstar competition. Congratulations, Zhou Xuanji. He has won 1 billion merit points and the serendipity of the Great Tao Tempering Pool for a month. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes wide. This was the learning competition indeed. The reward was almost 5 times that of the Tao debate. Before the superstar divine official could speak, he took out his identity medallion. The superstar divine official took the medallion and sighed in his heart. Is this kid really just a Tao-treading saint? Could he be the reincarnation of some ancient god? Meng Shen and Chang Xingxiao were not in the top 3 because of their mental imbalance. The second and third place were both geniuses who chose a divine ability. How ironic. There was a mistake in publishing the previous chapter. Don't worry, I won't make you spend too much money. I will revise the chapter and publish it directly. Chapter 690. Returning to the superstar sacred steel, Zhou Xuanji once again enjoyed everyone's attention. On this day, the heaven's favorites looked at him with awe. Even Ying Zhuge looked at him curiously. Ji Huanglin's eyes became complicated. If he had killed Zhou Xuanji back then, wouldn't he have killed a super genius? Most importantly, he could have easily killed Zhou Xuanji back then, but he did not do so because of various reasons. Perhaps this was God's will. Some people were destined to soar into the sky with an unstoppable momentum. From today onwards, the Kunlun Origin Court has another Zhou Xuanji. TSK, is he really a 12-star genius? Don't tell me that the high-level examiner made a mistake. That's possible. With such learning ability, he's at least 15 stars. Could he be the reincarnation of some almighty figure? Think about which sword path almighty figures have recently reincarnated. Now that I think about it, it's been a long time since a peerless sword master has appeared. The geniuses discussed among themselves, while Zhou Xuanji began cultivating as usual. Now that he had won 2 billion merit points, it was like he had suddenly become rich. He could greatly modify the world in the Lotus and help Emperor Sword Court develop quickly. The more he thought about it, the happier he felt. At the same time, he was very interested in the Great Tao Tempering Pool. It was said that this thing could make the Great Tao soar and even change one's mortal body, but no one knew whether it was true or not. The next competition had already begun, but the shock that Zhou Xuanji brought to everyone was not forgotten as quickly as before. The top 1,000 divine ranges all had their eyes on Zhou Xuanji. The reason was simple. To them, the Longbo divine range did not deserve to have Zhou Xuanji. This kind of prodigy should need a stronger environment. Time ticked by. Zhou Xuanji would occasionally open his eyes to watch the superstar competition, but he was more looking forward to the Great Tao talent competition. He could not wait to end the superstar competition and continue to grow stronger. He loved the feeling of becoming stronger. The faster, the better. Half a year later, there was a loud bang. Suddenly, Zhou Xuanji felt the heavens and earth shake violently. He opened his eyes and saw a blood-red crack in the dusky sky. Everyone, be careful. Enemy attack. Fierce Thunder Sovereign shouted in a deep voice, startling all the geniuses and causing them to turn around. Zhou Xuanji had a strange look on his face. There were still people who dared to attack the superstar competition. Tired of living? The other prodigies had the same expression on their faces. They were all in disbelief. The superstar competition was created by a sovereign. Interfering with the superstar competition was equivalent to offending a sovereign. It was definitely courting death. A gigantic hand stretched out from the blood-colored hole. The palm was like a blade, slashing horizontally and vertically, widening the blood-colored hole. This scene caused all the geniuses to feel a chill in their hearts. It was because this hand was too large, like a divine vein. Even though they were separated by several tens of thousands of li, they still felt as if they were looking up at a great mountain. Why is he here? The fierce Thunder Sovereign squinted his eyes and mumbled to himself. His eyes were filled with fear. He immediately cast a spell to send a signal. The superstar competition had been held many times, and there had been instances of enemy attacks throughout history. Even though Supremes were lofty existences, there were still some existences that were too powerful for Supremes to kill for various reasons. Very soon, a huge face appeared in the bloody hole. The face was old and cold, and could even be said to be ferocious. Withered hair fell on his forehead, and his eyes were bloodshot like lightning. So many delicacies. His voice was hoarse and full of killing intent. Boom! The dim sky in front of him suddenly shattered. Endless cold wind blew, and a figure as burly as a giant god appeared. He was bare-chested and wearing pitch-black shorts. His calves were entangled with many vines. His bare feet were huge, completely out of proportion with his calves. The muscles on his upper body were extremely impactful. After taking a step forward, he bent over and walked into this independent universe. All the geniuses were shocked. Because this guy was carrying a mountain that was even bigger than him on his right shoulder. No one knew how many tens of thousands of meters tall it was. Looking closely, one could see that the mountain wall was bare, trapping countless souls and creatures. The lower half of those creatures and souls were stuck in the mud. Their faces were full of fear and resentment. Their bodies were twisting and struggling non-stop. The strangest thing was that no sound came out. Even Ingzhuge, Chu Machen, and Ji Huanglin couldn't help but frown. Old demon soul mover. Someone cried out in shock. His tone was full of fear. All the geniuses were frightened. Zhou Xuanji, on the other hand, looked puzzled. What's the origin of Old Demon Soul Mover? Fierce Thunder Sovereign flew to the front and faced Old Demon Soul Mover alone. He said coldly, Old Demon Soul Mover, you are here to interfere with the superstar competition again. Do you really think that the Sovereign won't kill you? Old Demon Soul Mover raised the corner of his mouth and sneered, this time, I will eat you too. After that, he raised his left hand and grabbed at Fierce Thunder Sovereign. Fierce Thunder Sovereign raised his arms, and countless lightning bolts burst out, turning into a lightning net that covered the void and pounced toward Old Demon Soul Mover. Old Demon Soul Mover was completely unaffected. His left hand suddenly sped up and slapped Fierce Thunder Sovereign away. Boom! Fierce Thunder Sovereign smashed into the ground, causing the ground to collapse. No one knew if he was dead or alive. All the geniuses opened their eyes wide, including Zhou Xuanji. What's going on? Fierce Thunder Sovereign is so weak? No. It's because Old Demon Soul Mover moved too fast. No one could clearly see the slap just now. Old Demon Soul Mover opened his mouth and inhaled deeply. The earth shook, and the mountains in the distance shattered directly, turning into a dust storm that gushed into his mouth, including the sea of clouds in the sky. All the geniuses backed away from Old Demon Soul Mover. Even so, the violent suction force made them feel uncomfortable. Zhou Xuanji immediately activated the Sword Fusion Technique and 9 Soul Fusion Technique. His condition improved tremendously, but even so, he could not retreat. This suction force was too powerful. What cultivation stage is he at? Zhou Xuanji's heart shuddered. Just a breath was already so powerful. It was hard to imagine what kind of force Fierce Thunder Sovereign was enduring. Looking in the direction of his gaze, Old Demon Soul Mover was so gigantic that it was as though he was going to swallow the entire world. The giant mountain on his shoulder was like a place where evil and resentment gathered. Countless vengeful souls swayed and danced wildly. At this moment, a golden ray of light descended from the sky. A man radiating with a golden radiance pierced toward Old Demon Soul Mover with a long spear. The golden flames transformed into a long pillar that occupied the entire world. It crashed into Old Demon Soul Mover and forcefully pushed him back. Origin Court War God. You dog, you are here again. Old Demon Soul Mover roared madly, deafening Zhou Xuanji and making him dizzy. Origin Court War God, who was shrouded in golden radiance, remained silent. He swung his spear domineeringly, causing Old Demon Soul Mover to disappear into the darkness. Next, Origin Court War God chased after him and disappeared into the dark void. The world fell silent. The giant hole in the distance was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. The geniuses looked at each other. They could see the fear and shock in each other's eyes. Old Demon Soul Mover was terrified. Origin Court War God was shocked. Boom! Fierce Thunder Sovereign broke out of the ground and flew toward the superstar Sacred Steel. Everyone's expression turned weird. Because Fierce Thunder Sovereign's head was twisted by the slap. His face was facing the back, which looked very weird. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.